Chapter 3909. When Liang Yin heard this, she didn't refute him. Instead, she said seriously, I used to think that you didn't have the ability and that you relied on your die-hard fans to support you. But now I feel that you're very good. You're really a high-quality idol. Hua Jin was stunned. There was a mouthful of water in his mouth. He didn't know whether to spit it out or swallow it. It took him a long time to realize that Liang Yin was praising him. He didn't come back to his senses for a while. When he came back to his senses, he swallowed the water in his mouth with a gulp. He said exaggeratedly, You're actually praising me? He was just mocking himself. He didn't expect her to praise him so seriously. These are my heartfelt words. Liang Yin raised the corner of her lips in a mocking manner. Perhaps it's really hard for people to understand other people's situations. Not everyone can put themselves in their shoes. After I changed identities with you, only when I became a real celebrity did I understand how deep the waters of the entertainment industry are, how dirty people can be, and how difficult it is to be a celebrity. Seeing that Liang Yin looked serious, Hua Jin sighed. It's really not easy. It's very tiring. Yeah, I just feel like I'm tied up in very heavy chains. Sometimes it really feels very difficult. Hua Jin said meaningfully, Heaven and earth are like a cage. No one is a body of shackles? When Liang Yin heard this, she didn't speak for a long time. After a long time, she smiled and said, Yeah, heaven and earth are like a cage. No one is not a body of heavy shackles. The two of them looked at each other. Liang Yin suddenly leaned over and said, Speaking of which, there's something that I'm more concerned about. Yeah. Tell me. Do you like women or men? Luckily, Hua Jin didn't have any water in his mouth. Otherwise, he would have spat it out. Why are you asking this? Because I feel that there's a huge problem with your sexual orientation. What problem? When we went to the hot spring in the middle of the mountain, I felt that you and that man called Gong Jie seemed very ambiguous. It would have been better if Liang Yin hadn't mentioned it. At the mention of the name Gong Jie, Hua Jin's face instantly turned red. What do you mean by ambiguous? What can I have with him? Hua Jin said angrily, Don't talk nonsense. I'm a straight man. Steel bars? When Liang Yin heard this, she burst out laughing. I can't tell. Instead, I feel like you're a straight man who's like a rubber band. Hua Jin's face turned green and purple, purple and black, black and red, red and white. In the blink of an eye, there were thousands of changes. He stood up angrily and was about to leave. Liang Yin quickly stopped him. What are you doing? Why are you angry just like that? Hua Jin questioned her with an ashen face. Do you know that questioning a man's sexual orientation is the greatest insult to him? I was just joking. Is this kind of test a joke? Hua Jin was really angry. Liang Yin sized up his expression. Seeing that he was really angry, she couldn't understand. Normally, when people hear such things, they'd just laugh it off. At most, they'd clarify and wouldn't take it to heart. Why are you taking it so seriously? Liang Yin reminded him carefully. Why do I feel like you're trying to cover it up? Don't talk nonsense. Chapter 3910. Liang Yin smiled and said calmly, I didn't say that you like men. Maybe the person you like is a man. Hua Jin was taken aback. He actually fell into a daze because of this sentence. That's right. Why do I feel uneasy when I'm facing Gong Jie? He even felt uneasy and wanted to avoid it. Could it be? Hua Jin bit his knuckles. Could it be that he was really interested in Gong Jie subconsciously? No. This was Liang Yin's way of inducing him. Hua Jin jerked his head up and glanced at her. His gaze was like a torch. Liang Yin was stunned. What are you looking at? Hurry up and memorize the script. Liang Yin felt wronged. Memorize what script? Didn't the crew stop filming? Because of Tang Yu. It's not certain when they will resume filming. If they resume filming and you don't memorize your lines, it'll be too late even if you work all night. With that said, Hua Jin found the script and threw it in front of her. Fix the script first. Liang Yin said, Oh. She reluctantly picked up the script and looked at it silently. Hua Jin left the room. Liang Yin buried her face in the script until she watched him leave. Only then did she breathe a sigh of relief. Hua Jin returned to his room and lay on the bed. He was so frustrated that he tossed and turned, but he couldn't fall asleep. He covered his face with the blanket. No, could it be that he had been single for too long? So he started to think about it and even started to doubt his sexual orientation? Qinzhou? In the coffee shop. Hua Jin stirred his coffee with empty eyes. Qinzhou, who was sitting opposite him, raised his eyebrows and glanced at him. What's wrong? Do you have feelings for men? Qinzhou almost spat out the coffee in his mouth. He widened his eyes and snorted coldly. He said expressionlessly, "My sexual orientation is normal." "What's wrong? Did your sexual orientation change when you became a woman?" "Of course not." Hua Jin insisted, "I like women." His repeated emphasis had aroused Qin Zhou's suspicion. "Why are you emphasizing it so much? You make it sound like you're brainwashing me." "Some people are suspicious of my sexual orientation." "Oh? Weren't there always people who were suspicious?" The issue of Hua Jin's sexual orientation had always been a hot topic for the media. Many paparazzi suspected that Hua Jin was gay. Of course, this question had not been verified yet. "What's the big deal about liking men?" Qin Zhou continued, "In the industry, men like men and women like women. It's actually a common occurrence. There were also those who liked both men and women. That's the best for investors." In this circle, some investors were particularly playful. Not only did they have a lot of women, but they also had a lot of young men as their mistresses. In fact, a person's potential orientation was uncertain. Sometimes, when a man liked another man, it wasn't because he was gay. It was purely because the person he liked was a man. It won't be long before Tang Yu's dismissal from the crew is announced to the public. Qin Zhou took a sip of his coffee. "You should urge Liang Yin to consolidate the script. The crew will probably resume filming soon." Then, Hua Jin asked tentatively, "Who will replace Tang Yu's role?" Chapter 39:11. Just as Qin Zhou said, not long after, the announcement of Tang Yu's removal from the cast was posted online. Weibo and all major media outlets reported on the incident. Soon, the person who replaced Tang Yu's role was posted on a poster. However, because he was a newcomer who had just debuted, he was selected by the sponsors. Although he was a newcomer, to be selected by the sponsors, he must have a lot of connections. However, he wasn't famous and didn't receive much attention. Soon, the incident came to an end with Tang Yu and Sun Hai terminating their contract. It seemed that Huan Yu and Sun Hai had reached an agreement. Sun Hai had promised Huan Yu a lot of benefits, so Huan Yu didn't pursue the matter. Without the media adding fuel to the fire, there were no more articles about it. The heat of the matter quickly died down. The crew resumed filming and Liang Yin became busy again. She complained a lot. In order to film, she was so busy every day. The weather was getting colder, she had to wear thin clothes, dance swords in the cold wind, and hang a wire. The first time she hung a wire, she was scared out of her wits. She was so scared that she almost lost half of her life. Hua Jin was also happy to be free. He didn't have to film or work. He had nothing to do in the hotel every day. So, at night, he would occasionally go to bars to drink a few glasses of wine. He hadn't been to bars for a long time. In the past, because he was busy with filming and was a public figure, he could go to such places unscrupulously under rare circumstances. So he rarely visited. Now that he had the leisure and leisure time, he began to visit more diligently. That night, after Liang Yin finished filming, Hua Jin wanted to go to a bar. Liang Yin hadn't been to bars, so she insisted to go. Hua Jin disliked her. "You're a big star now. You can't just go to places like that. What if the paparazzi took a picture of you?" Liang Yin argued, "What's wrong with being a big star? Can't a big star go to a bar to drink? I'm not doing anything bad. I'm just drinking and enjoying the atmosphere of a bar. Can't I?" Hua Jin was speechless, so he could only brace himself and bring her along. When the two of them arrived at the bar, it was still early. Hua Jin wanted to find a booth, but Liang Yin wanted to watch the bartender mix drinks, so she insisted on sitting at the bar counter. Hua Jin couldn't argue with her, so he sat with her at the bar. Liang Yin looked at the bartending and couldn't say anything. Because she rarely came to bars, she always felt that the bar's environment was messy, but now she felt that it was okay. It was not as messy as she had imagined. "Wow. Hua Jin, look, there's fire in that wine." Liang Yin pulled him and pointed at the goblet in the bartender's hand. The fire was burning on the surface of the goblet. "How do you drink this wine? Could it be that he drank it together with the fire?" Hua Jin said, "You have to wait for the fire to go out before you can drink it." "I see." Liang Yin stared at the glass of wine and muttered, "I want to drink." "No, don't drink it." Hua Jin said, "The alcohol content of this wine is so high. If you get drunk, how am I going to carry you back?" Liang Yin was a little unhappy, but because of Hua Jin's warning, she could only watch helplessly. Hua Jin looked at her pitiful face and said to the bartender, "Give me a glass of tomorrow." "Okay. Tomorrow?" Chapter 39:12. Is this the name of this drink? Yes. What does it mean? Tomorrow, as the name suggests, after drinking this glass of wine, you'll only wake up tomorrow, so it's called tomorrow. When Liang Yin heard this, she opened her mouth and was a little surprised. Is the alcohol content very high? Yes, it's mixed with vodka. The alcohol content is especially high. Most people would only need to drink 2 sips. Liang Yin was a little doubtful. Is it that exaggerated? She didn't dare to drink it, but she really wanted to try it. How much is this glass? 288 yuan per glass. Liang Yin was speechless again. So expensive? Is it expensive? Still okay. That's true. You earn a few 100,000 per episode, so a glass of wine is indeed not expensive. Liang Yin said self-righteously. When she was filming for Hua Jin, many of her brain cells had died just from memorizing the lines. It was considered that she was at his beck and call, so it wasn't too much to drink a glass of wine from him. The bartender mixed the tomo and pushed it in front of Liang Yin. Liang Yin took out her cell phone and aimed it at the wine. After taking a few pictures, she kept her cell phone satisfactorily. After she kept her cell phone, the fire in the wine glass was extinguished. She tried to take a sip. However, the wine was fragrant and there was a hint of sweetness. It was quite tasty, but when she tasted it, she could clearly feel the vodka taste. It was a little strong, and when it slid down her throat, her stomach started to burn. She felt warm and her whole body started to heat up. Seems like it's really easy to get drunk. Liang Yin was a little wary as she pushed the wine glass in front of Hua Jin. She was afraid that if she drank this glass, she would get drunk again and get into trouble. Hua Jin couldn't help laughing. You're not drinking anymore after just 1 sip? I'm afraid that I'll get drunk. This wine is quite nice. It's quite sweet. Yes, it's because it's nice. There's no concept of drinking too much or too little, so it's easier to get drunk. As they spoke, Hua Jin suddenly felt a man sitting beside him. Beauty, are you alone? Hua Jin furrowed his brows and looked in the direction of the voice suspiciously, only to see a young man in a shirt sitting next to her. The man's eyes were bright, and it was obvious that he had some kind of ambition. There was no lack of such men in the bar. When he saw a woman he liked, he would go up and strike up a conversation with her. If the two of them hit it off, then everything would follow naturally. Hua Jin guessed that this man was probably here to hunt for beauties. He obviously saw him as prey, so he turned his face away and ignored him. What? He seems to be quite hard to please. The man rubbed his chin and looked at him deeply. It had to be said that Liang Yin's appearance was also of the highest quality. Hua Jin's deliberate indifference had instead ignited the ambition in his heart. Let me ask you, are you alone? Hua Jin still ignored him. He must be drunk, so there was no need to stoop to his level. Liang Yin also looked at the man curiously, but she was stopped by Hua Jin. Don't look at him. She leaned close to him and asked nervously, who is he? Do you know him? Do I look like I know him when you look at me? You don't? Then don't talk. Liang Yin asked tentatively, why don't we change seats and sit at the bar counter? Hua Jin glanced at her and said meaningfully, do you know what it means for a woman to sit at the bar counter in this bar? I don't. Chapter 39:13. This, Liang Yin was a little annoyed. No wonder Hua Jin didn't seem too willing when she pulled him to sit at the bar. So there were such unspoken rules in bars too. Let's change seats? Okay. The man beside him saw that Hua Jin had been ignoring him from start to finish and finally got impatient. He suddenly stood up and leaned towards him. He grabbed his chin and forced him to turn around. I'm talking to you. Why are you ignoring me? Hua Jin struggled and wanted to push him away. He felt disgusted when he was touched by him. Liang Yin stood up and swung the man's hand away. She said angrily, what are you doing? Show some respect. The man had obviously drunk too much. After half a round of drinks, he had lost his patience. Seeing that Liang Yin dared to swat his hand away, he pushed Hua Jin away and pulled Liang Yin in front of him. What did you just say? Hua Jin was about to stop her, but Liang Yin was like a newborn calf that was not afraid of a tiger. She ignored the man's threatening gaze and scolded expressionlessly, I'm telling you to be more respectful. Don't touch my female companion. Bam! The man abruptly pushed her and swung his arm. Liang Yin instantly lost her center of gravity. Due to the inertia, she crashed into a bar chair at the side and fell harshly to the ground. She frowned in pain but did not make a sound. Anxiously, Hua Jin rushed over and tried to help her up in a fluster. The man walked over, held her hand and pulled her to his side. What are you doing? Hua Jin struggled a little. Let go of me. The man pinched his chin and looked at him carefully. He was satisfied. She's quite pretty. After a pause, his contemptuous gaze fell on Liang Yin. Is she your girl? Hee hee, then today your girl is mine. What? Without waiting for Hua Jin to question him, the man immediately grabbed his face, pressed his mouth down and kissed him fiercely. The smell of alcohol in his mouth blew onto his face. Hua Jin's entire body stiffened. Feeling the man's kiss, he felt extremely disgusted, as if he had been bitten by a dog. He used all his strength to push him away and forcefully wiped away the man's remaining warmth on his mouth. Disgusting. Are you crazy? Hua Jin resisted the urge to slap her and said angrily, "Don't touch me with your dirty hands. You have a bit of a temper." The man sneered, "But I like it. Women are like wine, the stronger the better." Liang Yin couldn't stand it anymore, especially when she saw the man kissing Hua Jin forcefully. She felt disgusted and immediately got up from the ground. She stepped forward and grabbed Hua Jin's hand. "Let's go. Don't talk nonsense with him." Hua Jin was still angry. However, he knew in his heart that he didn't know the man's identity. Now was not the time to confront him. There were too many people and they couldn't stay for long. If they attracted attention and were recognized, the loss would outweigh the gain. He didn't know if there were reporters in this bar. This bar was known as the entertainment industry's Hall of Fame. Some well-known directors, producers, and celebrities would patronize this bar because the owner of this bar was jointly opened by a few celebrities. It was a side business. Hence, most of the patrons were related to the entertainment industry. In this industry, it was better to suffer more grievances than to offend people. Chapter 39:14. Hua Jin was just about to pull Liang Yin away. Just as the two of them reached the entrance of the bar, they were stopped by a few men who appeared out of nowhere. Hua Jin glanced at them and subconsciously reached for the phone in his pocket. Immediately, a man strode forward and snatched the phone from his hand. Without even looking at it, he threw it on the ground and stomped on it a few times. "What, you want to call the police?" Let me tell you, our brother Hui is the least afraid of the police. Even the chief of the police station has to listen to his father's orders." The few men reeked of alcohol and must have drunk a lot. It would be fine if a drinker was drunk, but he was afraid that when he was half drunk, his mind was not clear and he was easily agitated. Hua Jin did not want to offend them, so he forced a smile. "Sorry? It's like this, he doesn't know any better and offended your big brother just now. I'm really sorry. How about this, I'll get her to apologize to all of you. It's getting late, we're planning to leave." Liang Yin also understood what Hua Jin meant. She did not want to blow things up, so she quickly smiled and said, "Sorry, I was too agitated just now and offended you." Behind him, the man walked over and walked in front of Hua Jin. He snorted, "Don't you think it's too late to admit your mistake now? However, it's not like there's no chance to make up for it. How about this, tonight if you come with me I'll let your boyfriend go, how about it?" "Brother Hui. This man looks familiar. I think I've seen him on TV before, could he be some big star? There have always been a lot of celebrities in this bar, who wouldn't give my brother Hui some face?" "Exactly. I recognize him, isn't this the big star Hua Jin?" It was not known who had sharp eyes and recognized him. Before Liang Yin went out, she had carefully disguised herself. However, her extremely recognizable facial features still allowed people to recognize who the person in front of them was. Hua Jin, a big star. This is incredible. This woman should be his assistant. The man said coldly, "Your assistant will accompany me for one night. As for the rest, we'll write it off. How about that?" Liang Yin said firmly, "No." Hua Jin pulled Liang Yin back and gave her a look. "You go back first." He frowned and mouthed, "Go back and look for Qin Zhou." Liang Yin immediately understood, but before she could react, she was pushed out of the door by Hua Jin. "Flower, you go back first." Hua Jin maintained his composure and smiled at her. "I'll be back later." As he spoke, he winked at Liang Yin, hinting for her to quickly find Qin Zhou to save the day. Liang Yin did not dare to delay. She quickly turned around and left. She had never encountered such a situation before, so she was so nervous that her whole body was trembling. She rushed to the intersection and hurriedly hailed a taxi. However, just as she got into the car, she realized that she did not have any money on her. The driver did not recognize her and asked, "Where are you going?" "To the film studio first." "Okay." The driver hit the meter and the car sped in the direction of the film studio. Liang Yin's hand trembled as she took out her phone. She had specially saved Qin Zhou's number in her phone. She hesitated for a few seconds and immediately dialed. "Do." Chapter 39:15. "Hello." Qin Zhou's sleepy voice came from the other end of the line. He had a lot of free time recently. After settling Hua Jin's matter, he had given himself a long holiday. Hence, he slept earlier than usual. Qin Zhou. Liang Yin called out anxiously, Qin Zhou, something bad has happened. Qin Zhou was in a daze. He couldn't tell if it was Hua Jin or Liang Yin who was calling him. He snorted and asked, "What's the matter?" "Hua Jin. Hua Jin has been detained." "What's the matter?" Qin Zhou muttered unhappily, "What's the matter? Tell me directly." Liang Yin kept her composure and told him what had happened in a concise and comprehensive manner. Qin Zhou ruffled his hair in frustration, but his voice was calm. "Wait for me at the bar. I'll come over right away." I didn't bring any money with me," Liang Yin muttered weakly. The taxi driver heard this and raised his eyebrows. He was alarmed. "You didn't bring any money to take a taxi? Someone will pay for my ride." On the other end of the line, Qin Zhou heard this and said, "Nonsense. Take a taxi and come to my place first. Ming City Apartments. I'll wait for you downstairs." Okay. After Liang Yin gave him the address, the driver grumbled a few times before heading to the apartment in Ming City. When the car arrived at Ming City Apartments, Qin Zhou opened the door and got into the car. After getting into the car, Qin Zhou told the driver the address without hesitation. Suhi Bar. "What? Take a detour?" The driver was gloomy. "Are you kidding me?" Qin Zhou narrowed his eyes and glared at him unhappily. "I'll lodge a complaint if you continue to nag." The driver didn't say anything else. He made a U-turn and drove straight to the bar. Liang Yin sat beside him and glanced at him cautiously. She saw that Qin Zhou had changed into his usual attire. However, his hair was a little messy, perhaps because he had just gotten out of bed. There was a faint mint fragrance on his body. I don't know where it came from. Qin Zhou realized that Liang Yin was secretly sizing him up. He turned back to look at her and couldn't help but reach out to pinch her face. "All of you are messing around. Instead of sleeping in the middle of the night and memorizing the script, you went to a bar to play. You really have a lot of free time." For some reason, Liang Yin was instinctively afraid of Qin Zhou. Even though Qin Zhou was young Hua Jin's manager and had a handsome face, Tongning never dared to look him in the eye. Perhaps it was because he had the aura of a dignified leader with an intimidating presence. "It's boring to memorize a script. You can hang out in bars if you're bored?" Qin Zhou snorted. "The bar is such a messy place. It's fine if Hua Jin goes alone to mess around, but if you go with him, I'll have to clean up the mess for you." Liang Yin bit her lip guiltily. Who detained Hua Jin? Liang Yin hesitated for a long time, but she couldn't come up with a reason. She just said, "I don't know either." "I don't expect you to know either." Qin Zhou sighed helplessly and took out a cigarette from his cigarette box. He put it in his mouth and lit it up. The mint-flavored scent of the cigarette filled the car. The driver said, "You can't smoke in the car." Qin Zhou said, "Just drive. Don't be a busybody." The driver replied. Chapter 39:16. After the car arrived at the bar, Qin Zhou casually threw out $200 bills and got out of the car with Liang Yin by her collar. In that instant, Liang Yin felt as if she, who was 1.8 meters tall, was like a little bunny next to Qin Zhou. She said weakly, "Don't carry me. I can walk on my own." "I thought your legs had turned to jelly from the fright." "My legs didn't turn to jelly." "Then why were you shaking in the car just now?" Liang Yin held it in for a long time. "It was cold." Qin Zhou glanced at her, puzzled. Suddenly he smiled, revealing his snow-white teeth. Liang Yin looked at him and asked curiously, "Are you the only one here? If not, how many people do you need?" "They have a lot of people. Won't you get bullied if you're alone?" Qin Zhou snorted softly. "All right, since you're so timid, just wait for me at the entrance of the bar. Don't move." "No, I want to go in with you." Liang Yin was also worried about Hua Jin. Seeing that she said so, Qin Zhou didn't say anything, which was a tacit agreement. The two of them walked into the bar one after the other. In the afternoon, the music was loud and boisterous. Qin Zhou walked through the unrestrained crowd to the beat of the music. He walked all the way to the bar counter and said to the bartender, "Call your manager out." The bartender didn't even look at him. He thought that Qin Zhou was drunk and was here to pick a fight. Without looking up, he said, "The manager isn't here." Qin Zhou didn't say anything. He picked up an empty bottle beside him and smashed it on the bar counter. The broken bottle scattered everywhere. The people around all stood up in shock and looked at Qin Zhou in horror. Not far away, the manager who was patrolling the bar heard the commotion and hurried over. At the same time, the bartender saw that Qin Zhou was openly smashing the bar and said angrily, "What are you doing? Picking a fight? Do you know whose bar this is?" What's going on? The manager hurried over. When he saw Qin Zhou, he recognized him immediately and greeted him politely. Brother Qin, why are you here? Qin Zhou's reputation in the entertainment industry was like thunder. If the manager couldn't even recognize Qin Zhou, he definitely wouldn't be able to get to this position. When the bartender saw the manager nodding and bowing to this man, he was stunned and guiltily put his hands behind his back. Qin Zhou glanced at the bartender and then at the manager. Am I seeing a ghost? Didn't you say that the manager isn't here? The manager glared at the bartender and scoffed. This is not a place for you to act rashly. Hurry up and get lost. Don't come to work tomorrow. Manager, cut the crap and scram. The bartender bit his lips in grievance and immediately left. The manager rubbed his palms together and smiled apologetically. Brother Qin, it's so late. Are you here for a drink? You haven't been here often recently. You must be busy, right? Don't talk nonsense with me. Qin Zhou said coldly, my artist's assistant was detained by the customers of your bar. Do you remember? I can't remember, Qin Zhou asked slowly. You have no recollection of it at all? Even though he didn't show it on his face, his voice seemed to carry some dissatisfaction. Chapter 39:17. You know, with our status, how can we afford to offend those young masters? Haha, most of them just turn a blind eye to it. I'm not sure. In this bar, those young masters often came to hunt for women and sometimes caused trouble. As the manager, he did not dare to offend them. He knew about this, but because it was only a celebrity assistant who was detained, it was not a big deal. In this line of work, even an assistant could not escape the unspoken rules. But anyone who stepped into this line of work had a strong background, and others usually did not dare to touch them. Moreover, it was just an assistant. It was not worth it to ruin the relationship with those young masters for an assistant. Qin Zhou gradually lost his patience. When people cause trouble, you're afraid of hurting the relationship, so you turn a blind eye to it. So, as the manager, you don't care if I cause trouble? The manager said. Brother Qin, don't. Even if I ruin this place, your masters might not dare to pursue it. But your position as the manager is not stable. How about this? The manager could not stand the scare and quickly said with a smile, I'll go and find out for you the background of those young masters who detained your people. How about this? Okay. Don't worry, as long as it's your people, we'll protect them well. Even if we can't protect them, we'll call you immediately if anything happens. I don't have much time. Hurry. Okay, right away. The manager quickly sent someone. On the other hand, he immediately arranged for Qin Zhou and Liang Yin to be safely arranged in a private room and served them good wine and tea. After a while, someone rushed over and said that the people who took away Hua Jin were the young masters of Wuxia Films. Wuxia Films? Qin Zhou had heard of Wuxia Films. Although they were not famous, their background was not to be underestimated. The big boss of Wuxia Films had an extraordinary background and was not someone to be offended. I heard that the young directors of Wuxia Film and Television brought a few women upstairs. They seemed to have drunk quite a lot. They must have had too much to drink. Upstairs? Yes, the hotel upstairs. Qin Zhou ordered, help me find out their room number. Standing in the hotel elevator, Liang Yin rubbed her hands nervously, afraid that something might happen to Hua Jin. He was alone and weak. He didn't know how he would be bullied. Qin Zhou, on the other hand, appeared very calm. Liang Yin asked curiously, aren't you worried about Hua Jin? What's the use of worrying? He's an adult now. Since he offended someone, he should be taught a lesson. Liang Yin said weakly, actually I offended someone this time. Hua Jin went with them to protect me. That's not a reason. Since you're already an adult, it's not your first time entering such a place. Liang Yin, on the other hand, felt extremely guilty. If she hadn't insisted on sitting at the bar counter, she wouldn't have attracted bees and butterflies and made things difficult for Hua Jin. I was wrong. Liang Yin looked apologetic. Qin Zhou snorted. Go back and write a 5,000-word self-criticism letter. 5,000 words. Liang Yin widened her eyes. So many words? Why? Do you have any thoughts? No thoughts. I'll go back and write. Ding. The elevator door opened. Chapter 39:18. Walking to the door, Qin Zhou was about to slam the door when he heard a thud, as if something heavy had been thrown on the door. Oh no! The thing that Qin Zhou was most worried about had happened. Beside him, Liang Yin saw that Qin Zhou's face had finally revealed an anxious expression. She was also worried that something had happened to Hua Jin. She patted the door worriedly and said, Hua Jin. Is Hua Jin here? Get out of the way. Qin Zhou pushed Liang Yin to the side. Taking half a step back, he gathered his strength and kicked the door open with a flying kick. He rushed in anxiously. As expected, when he saw the scene in front of him, he held his forehead in pain. Liang Yin couldn't see the situation in the room, but she saw that Qin Zhou's expression wasn't looking too good. When she finally saw the situation in the room, the corner of her lips twitched violently and her face darkened. Ouch, it hurts, someone come. One by one, the men were lying on the ground crying out in pain as if they were going to die. Hua Jin stood in the middle of the crowd and glanced coldly at the room. Seeing that most of the people had been taken care of, he clapped his hands and said speechlessly, "You're still showing off in front of me with this little ability?" Qin Zhou cleared his throat and frowned as he said, "Hua Jin." Hua Jin turned around and was shocked to see that it was Qin Zhou. "Qin. Boss?" Qin Zhou walked over and raised his hand to give him a knock on the head. "Didn't I tell you to restrain yourself? If you cripple them, you won't be able to pay for the lives of these young masters even if you sell yourself." Hua Jin trembled and whistled guiltily. Liang Yin saw this scene from the side and was a little dumbfounded. Hua Jin was actually so skilled? No wonder Hua Jin looked so relaxed at the bar and asked her to leave first. No wonder Qin Zhou was so calm when he heard about this. He didn't seem to be worried at all. He was very calm. No wonder Qin Zhou was so nervous when he heard the commotion in the room. It wasn't because he was worried that something bad had happened to Hua Jin. Instead, he was worried that Hua Jin would cripple the others. I can't tell. The seemingly weak Hua Jin actually had such a valiant side to him. Liang Yin looked around in a daze and mumbled, "Hua Jin, are you always so tough? I've filmed historical dramas before, so I can be considered half a martial artist. These weaklings are more than enough." Hua Jin also felt a little guilty. He complained to Qin Zhou, "Qin Zhou, don't you know that this group of beasts? They actually wanted to do something to me. How could I let them succeed? I struggled and resisted, but they wanted to use force. I had no choice but to take action." Qin Zhou rolled his eyes at him. "Didn't I tell you to keep your distance?" "Of course I did." Hua Jin retorted, I kept my distance. Don't worry, they definitely won't break their arms or legs, nor will they be injured. It's just some flesh wounds at most. There's nothing else." "Oh." Qin Zhou snorted coldly. "Damn it, I'm the one who has to clean up the mess for you." Hua Jin pretended to be pitiful and said, "What can you do? You can't just stand by and watch me get molested by them, right?" Liang Yin asked curiously, "How did they treat you just now?" "They wanted to do that to me." "Huh?" Hua Jin clenched his fists angrily. "They wanted to rape me." Chapter 39:19. When Liang Yin heard this, her anger rose. She ignored Qin Zhou's strange look and walked over to the men who were rolling around on the ground in pain. She gave them a few more kicks. Hua Jin rushed over to pull her back. Okay, I've already taught them a lesson. Don't add more." "These bastards. You actually want to use force on a girl who doesn't have the strength to truss a chicken." Liang Yin stomped on them angrily. Hua Jin and Qin Zhou watched silently from the side for a long time. Almost in unison they asked, "Are you really so weak?" On the way back to the hotel, Qin Zhou started to lay down 3 rules with Hua Jin. Number 1, you're not allowed to stay out at night. Okay. Number 2, you're not allowed to go to nightclubs, bars, pubs, dance halls and other public places for entertainment. Got it? Number 3, you're not allowed to do this again. If it happens again, I'll deduct your year-end bonus. Ah? Hua Jin clung onto Qin Zhou's arm, feeling wronged. Don't bosh Qin. I'm the victim here. I'm only doing this to protect myself. It's not a crime to defend oneself. Why don't you take a look at your status? It's the middle of the night and you're not resting in the hotel. Hua Jin, you're really something. Qin Zhou replied with an and glared at her. Hua Jin gulped nervously and mumbled timidly, "It won't happen again." Liang Yin watched from the side and was quite frightened by Qin Zhou's aura. This man seemed to be very scary. Qin Zhou turned around slowly and took a look at Liang Yin. He smiled gently, but there was an obvious coldness in his eyes. "You'll stay in the hotel obediently from now on. Don't run around and memorize the script, okay?" Liang Yin trembled and nodded obediently. Qin Zhou smiled and raised his hand to rub her head gently as if he was petting an obedient baby. "Good girl. Good girl. Good girl." She didn't know why, but when he touched her head, his movements were especially gentle and tender. Liang Yin's face inexplicably became hot, and her heart beat rapidly. She actually fell into this gentle gesture. She bit her lips and secretly looked at Qinzhou from time to time. She felt that Qinzhou was a reliable man. Although he gave people the impression that he was a little black-bellied with him around, she felt an endless sense of security. No matter how big the problem was, she wouldn't feel afraid. She always felt that he was there to shoulder it, and she wasn't afraid at all. Her maiden heart. Immersed, intoxicated, Hua Jin looked at Liang Yin, then at Qinzhou. He furrowed his eyebrows, feeling. Liang Yin looked at Qinzhou strangely. After returning to the hotel, Liang Yin returned to the sofa. She was still immersed in Qinzhou's gentle gaze. The girl's heart was thumping. Hua Jin stood by the side with his arms crossed, looking at her coldly. Suddenly, he reminded her kindly, Qinzhou has the same gentle gaze when he touches the puppy. Liang Yin reacted belatedly. She turned around and glanced at him. Are you talking to me? Aha. Hua Jin sat down opposite her. They were separated by a coffee table. He looked at her and said, Liang Yin, don't tell me you've taken a fancy to Qinzhou? Oh, who said I've taken a fancy to him? Chapter 39:20. That's nonsense. Hua Jin snorted. With Qinzhou's looks, it's not difficult for him to enter the entertainment industry. When he was young, he was also a young hunk. Young? Liang Yin caught this word and asked suspiciously, is he very old now? He should be in his 30s? 30s? Liang Yin was a little surprised. He looks about your age. That's because he's good at maintaining his looks. You don't know, but the skincare products at home are better than those of many female celebrities. In the past, when we were filming a show together, he would sit in front of the mirror every night before he went to bed. Practice? The eternal youth beauty technique. After bathing, he would apply it on his face. How can he not look young? Moreover, his facial features are younger. No matter how old he is, his face will still look the same. Liang Yin didn't quite understand what he was saying. She was not particular about maintaining her looks, so she was a little confused. Has he been in love before? Yes. Liang Yin was a little surprised. I thought he hasn't been in love before. Do you think he's an old virgin? How is that possible? For a man like him, there are plenty of women lining up for him. As long as he wants to, it's not an exaggeration to change a woman every day. Liang Yin was speechless again. She commented objectively, the rich circle is really messy. She had always thought that Qinzhou was an old cadre who had never been in a relationship before. He was an ascetic man who had never fallen in love before. She did not expect that Qinzhou had been in love before. But thinking about it, it made sense. After all, it was impossible for a man in his 30s not to have been in love before. What? You're asking about him? Don't tell me you're really interested in him? Liang Yin denied flatly, don't think too much. I'm not thinking too much. Your face is too red. What do you mean? Liang Yin touched her face instinctively and glared at Hua Jin. Hua Jin crossed his arms calmly and gave her a meaningful look. Somehow he felt that there was something fishy about this girl. Mr. Qin, I respect you as a person of character and have always given your artist's face. But look at what your employees have done. In the office, Qinzhou silently looked at the young man sitting on the sofa with half of his face swollen and shouting at him. The person in front of him was the son of Wuxia Film and Television, Su Yue. Last night he was beaten up by Hua Jin and even lost 2 of his teeth. It had to be said that Liang Yin's appearance was top-notch. In addition, Hua Jin had the habit of keeping a mistress at night. He always dragged Liang Yin to do skincare with him. Hua Jin's skincare products were all provided by advertisers. They were the best. Thus, in just a few days, Liang Yin's skin had been nourished to the point where it could be broken by blowing on it. Her skin had become supple and smooth. Even without makeup, she was still exceptionally beautiful. Su Yue had originally taken a liking to Liang Yin. But who would have thought that such a frail-looking person would be such a skilled fighter? In short, he was beaten up badly by Hua Jin. Yesterday, after Hua Jin and Liang Yin left with Qinzhou, Su Yue and his buddies were sent to the hospital by the hotel's manager. Chapter 39:21. There were no serious injuries, but a few of his teeth had fallen out, and his lower jaw had loosened. Other than that, he had a slight concussion. The others' injuries were of varying severity. Only Su Yue's injuries were the most serious. The next day after Su Yue woke up, he rushed to Huanyu to demand an explanation. Tisk. Qinzhou leaned lazily against the back of his chair with his legs propped up on the desk. The cigarette between his fingers was halfway burnt. He opened his eyes coldly and laughed contemptuously. Young Master Su, if word of this gets out, I'm afraid it won't be good for your reputation. Su Yue's face darkened when he heard that. What do you mean? Qin Zhou said slowly, you and your friends want to take turns with one of my artiste assistants. Don't you think your table manners are a little too ugly? Young Master Su, are you so desperate for women that you're not picky? You even want to touch one of my employees? If word of this gets out, those who don't know will think that young Master Su is desperate for women. Su Yue's face turned red, then green. When he caught sight of Qin Zhou's contemptuous gaze, his face darkened. He said angrily, she's just an assistant. Why can't I touch her? Huanyu is so big and there are so many artistes under it. I just want an assistant. In this industry, I've never seen someone so inconsiderate. Who am I? Why can't I touch her? Who does she think she is? Why doesn't she take a piss and take a good look at herself? How noble can she be? She's just an artiste assistant with a lowly status. She's not even worthy of my attention. Yes, she's just an assistant. Young Master Su, you're overestimating her. But the truth is, not only did young Master Su take a fancy to her, but your table manners are also extraordinarily ugly. After a pause, Qin Zhou said meaningfully, also, who said that the woman you touched was just an assistant in Huanyu? I remember someone reminded me that even a cleaner in Huanyu's headquarters could be related to the higher-ups. An assistant? Why, young Master Su, do you look down on assistants? What? Could it be that this woman is your pet, Xiao Qin? Qin Zhou smiled coldly. You can think of it that way for now. Anyway, you're not allowed to have any ideas about this woman in the future. Su Yue refused to admit it. Then what about yesterday's incident? Boss Qin, you have to give me an explanation? It doesn't matter if she's your woman or not. In short, that woman beat me and my brothers up so badly yesterday. Aren't you going to give me an explanation, President Qin? I'm more curious about one thing, Qin Zhou muttered with a puzzled expression. Why does young Master Su have so many people on his side? How can he be beaten up so easily by a girl? When I went in, people were lying on the ground. They were so young but they couldn't even hold up against a girl. Could it be that they've been in the brothel for so long that their kidneys are weak? Boom. It had to be said that Qin Zhou was too two-faced. This seemingly unintentional sentence undoubtedly ignited a barrel of explosives. A man could be scolded as a bastard or a heartless and unscrupulous person, but the words kidney deficiency could not be scolded. Kidney deficiency. Didn't that imply that he couldn't do it? This was related to a man's dignity. Sure enough, Su Yue exploded at once. Chapter 39-22. Kidney deficiency? Qin Zhou, what do you mean by this? Are you trying to provoke me on purpose? Or is it that Huanyu doesn't care about Wu Shan because Wu Shan has been giving Huanyu face? Qin Zhou gradually lost his patience. He stood up abruptly, walked casually to Su Yue, and flicked the ash on him expressionlessly. First of all, Wu Shan Entertainment was never yours. The one who gave Huanyu face was your father, not you. You're just relying on your father's power to make a fool of yourself. Second of all, even if your father stepped into Huanyu, he would never dare to yell at me. No matter what Wu Shan's background is, he still has to give Huanyu face. You touched my people and I didn't hold it against you. How dare you come to Huanyu to make trouble for me? Qin Zhou's phoenix eyes narrowed as he grabbed Su Yue's collar. You should see if you're worthy. Su Yue's lips suddenly trembled. For the sake of his face, he wanted to refute a few words, but when he saw Qin Zhou's cold eyes, all of a sudden, no matter how angry he was, he suppressed his anger. This man, he had a terrifying aura about him. Qin Zhou raised his eyebrows and his voice suddenly softened. Didn't your father tell you who you can mess with and who you can't? For example, me, Huanyu, and the Xinyu financial group behind Huanyu? Seeing that Su Yue was silent, Qin Zhou let go of him and said coldly, Young Master Su, please get lost. Huanyu doesn't welcome an insensible guest like you. Su Yue was furious. However, Qin Zhou had already spoken so harshly. Su Yue was also very clear that Qin Zhou had the capital that he couldn't provoke. Su Yue originally thought that if he came up to ask for an explanation, Qin Zhou would definitely push the assistant out to take responsibility or apologize. In short, it would be better for his reputation. As a man, especially a rich young master like him, what he cared about the most was his face. In the end, he didn't expect that Qin Zhou would be so protective of a lowly assistant. Not only did he lose face, but he was also ruthlessly criticized. Su Yue was rebuffed, so he left in a huff. Qin Zhou knew that this matter would not end so simply and carelessly. No one knew what Su Yue would do next. Ha ha ha. At noon, during the dinner party, Hua Jin heard from Qin Zhou that Su Yue had left after being snubbed. He laughed so hard that he was out of breath. Ah. This Su Yue is asking for trouble. Qin Zhou asked lightly, are you done laughing? Hua Jin immediately stopped smiling. Pursing his lips, he chuckled and said, let's eat. Let's eat. He was in a great mood. Liang Yin, who was sitting at the side, was a little worried. Do you think Su Yue will cause trouble for Huan Yu again? Qin Zhou said disdainfully, first of all, he has to be able to afford it. At most, I'm worried that he'll come looking for trouble with me. Wuxian Films and Television wouldn't dare to offend Huan Yu. Only then did Liang Yin feel relieved. From time to time she secretly sized up Qin Zhou. Originally she was still worried about Su Yue, worried that Su Yue would come looking for trouble. Chapter 39-23. She hadn't expected Qin Zhou to remain silent and deal with the matter. She couldn't help but have a better impression of him. She felt that he was a very reliable man. Liang Yin lamented in her heart. When they returned to the hotel, Hua Jin turned around to find Liang Yin following him like a shadow. She blinked her eyes with a conflicted look on her face, as if she was contemplating something. Hua Jin was a little suspicious and asked, what are you thinking about? Look at your face, why does it look so serious? Hua Jin, can I ask you a secret question? Okay, ask away. Hua Jin didn't wait for Liang Yin to speak and went straight to the point. You must want to ask about Qin Zhou, right? Liang Yin felt a little guilty and said unhappily, can you read minds? What? Are you really interested in him? Liang Yin blushed when she heard this and said awkwardly, I just want to ask, what type of girl does Qin Zhou like? Not someone like you. Liang Yin was a little suspicious and said unwillingly, how do you know that it's not someone like me? Why, are you really interested in him? I didn't say that I was interested in him. Liang Yin pretended to be calm and said, I'm just curious. Why doesn't he have a girlfriend even though he's already in his 30s? Is he picky about his girlfriend? If you want to talk about pickiness. Anyway, he likes someone with a voluptuous figure but not too voluptuous. For example, someone with a big chest, a perky butt, a thin waist, a big face, big eyes but not too big. In short, it's about being well proportioned. Most importantly, they have to be good looking. I think you're out of the game just based on your figure. Liang Yin didn't admit defeat when she heard this. A figure can be trained. Don't look down on people. Hua Jin was certain this time. You want to pursue him? Liang Yin was still a little hesitant. I didn't say that I wanted to pursue him. Although it's easy for a woman to chase a man, Qin Zhou isn't easy to chase. What? What do you mean by that? He doesn't like to be passive, he likes to take the initiative. A strategist like him was used to taking the initiative in everything. He never liked to be passive. On the contrary, he doesn't like the feeling of being chased by women. You don't like being chased by women? In short, any woman he doesn't like is basically hopeless. As Hua Jin spoke, he patted Liang Yin's head sympathetically. Don't think about him anymore. It's impossible between you and him. Furthermore. He paused and emphasized, now you're using my body. You want to use my body to chase after men. Have you asked for my opinion? Didn't you also use my body to seduce men? Have you asked for my opinion? Liang Yin retorted, not to be outdone. What do you mean I used your body to seduce men? Hua Jin was so angry that his face turned green. Did I use your body to attract bees and butterflies? Why not? Who was the one who caused Su You's incident yesterday? When Hua Jin heard this, he was filled with anger. If this girl hadn't insisted on sitting at the bar counter, would this have happened to him? Also Gongjia. Gongjia? Hua Jin was a little confused. Chapter 39-24. Liang Yin got angry at the mention of this. She said angrily, don't think that I don't know that during those few days at the Mid-Mountain Hotel, you were sharing a bed with that man called Gongjia. Did you ask for my opinion? How can that be called sharing a bed? Did you sleep on the same bed? Did you cover each other with a blanket? Although we shared a bed, each of us had a blanket. That's still called sharing a bed. Hua Jin was at a loss for words. You used my body to share a bed, so why can't I use your body to flirt with other men? Hua Jin looked as if he had heard the funniest joke in the world. If you use my body to flirt with other men, the prerequisite is that Qin Zhou must like men. If he doesn't like men, even if you strip naked and stand in front of him, he won't even look at you. He'll be indifferent the whole time. Liang Yin blushed as she glared at him. Suddenly, she smirked and asked meaningfully, who said that I'm going to flirt with Qin Zhou? Hua Jin was stunned for a moment. What else? Although Qin Zhou likes women and there's nothing you can do about it, there are also many men who like you. Hey Hua Jin, have you ever imagined that there would be a day where your body would be pressed down by another man? Hua Jin's eyes widened when he heard this. However, he pretended to be calm and said, Hey, you're just saying it. I don't think you'd dare to do it. Who says that I don't dare to do it? Liang Yin rubbed her chin and smiled. I feel that Gong Jie is quite interested in you. How about I go and flirt with him? Hua Jin suddenly became nervous. You dare. You'll see if I dare to. Anyway, my sexual orientation is very normal. That Gong Jie looks very handsome, so it's not that difficult to do it. Anyway, I won't lose out if I use your body to flirt with him. You. Hua Jin was furious for a moment, but he immediately calmed down. If you dare, why don't you show me your extraordinary courage? With that, he proudly turned his face away and walked into the room. When Liang Yin saw Hua Jin enter his room, she turned around and returned to her own room. For the next 2 days neither of them spoke. Actually, neither of them had done anything. However, Hua Jin's teasing tone made Liang Yin feel indignant. Liang Yin threatened Hua Jin, but Hua Jin didn't care. 2 days later, Liang Yin received a call from Yun Shishir, saying that she was going back to the Mu family for dinner. She didn't mention it to Hua Jin and took a taxi back to Mujia. Coincidentally, Gong Jie was also there. When Liang Yin saw that Gong Jie was there, she suddenly thought of a perfect plan. When Gong Jie saw Liang Yin, he narrowed his eyes suspiciously. When he saw that Yun Shishir wasn't looking in his direction, he went closer to Liang Yin and asked tentatively, Liang Yin. Liang Yin pretended to be calm and turned around. She cleared her throat and said, I'm Hua Jin. Gong Jie asked, You're back? There was a look of surprise in his eyes. However, when he thought about it, it made sense. If it was that woman, she wouldn't have gone back to the Mu family alone. Wasn't she afraid that she would be exposed? When did you change your identity? Liang Yin casually made up a story. 3 days ago. Gong Jie didn't suspect anything when he heard it. Liang Yin twitched a few times before she finally mustered up her courage and said to Gong Jie, I have a secret that I want to tell you. Chapter 39:25. Liang Yin glanced at him and finally made up her mind. She drew a seductive smile and leaned closer to him. Her breath smelled like orchids. I think I've fallen in love with you. Gong Jie was speechless. Liang Yin tugged at the corner of his shirt and imitated Hua Jin's tone. She pretended to sound him out. Don't you have feelings for me? Gong Jie narrowed his eyes. So you have an abnormal sexual orientation? Is liking men called having an abnormal sexual orientation? Liang Yin said seriously, In the past I couldn't accept the fact that I liked men. But now I've thought it through. Actually, I don't like all men. It's just that the person I like is of the same gender as me. Gong Jie narrowed his almond-shaped eyes. This Hua Jin, could it be that he was a masochist? Did he like him? Did he like being abused by him? Or, was he messing with him? Gong Jie was getting impatient. What kind of trick are you trying to pull? I'm not trying to pull any tricks. I really have feelings for you. As Liang Yin spoke, she slowly inched closer to him. Don't tell me you don't have feelings for me? Gong Jie grabbed her chin and said coldly, If you dare to make fun of me again, I won't let you off. Liang Yin wasn't afraid of his gaze at all. Instead, she squinted her eyes and smiled. She mustered her courage, tiptoed slightly and pecked his chin lightly. This time Gong Jie was even more stunned. He scrutinized Liang Yin in disbelief. The confusion in his eyes deepened. Today I kissed that man. At night, in the hotel room, Hua Jin was helping Liang Yin to mark up her script. He was flipping through the script and eating strawberries with relish when he suddenly said this. At first, Hua Jin didn't react. He blinked and asked, What do you mean? But, Gong Jie. Today I went back to the Mu family for dinner and confessed to him. Cough, cough, cough. Hua Jin was stunned for a long time before he suddenly coughed violently. He stood up in shock and stared at her with wide eyes. He said in disbelief, Confess? What is the meaning of this? Actually, it's not really a confession. Liang Yin pouted and explained, Actually, I was just saying that I'm interested in him. I'm just kidding. Hearing that it was a joke, Hua Jin frowned. Thinking that Liang Yin wouldn't dare to mess around, he nervously sat back on the sofa. In the future, don't make such jokes, okay? With Gong Jie's personality, he will definitely take it seriously. Liang Yin pretended to be surprised. How did you know? Hua Jin? What was that supposed to mean? Liang Yin giggled. He really took it seriously and thought that you were interested in him. Hua Jin. Liang Yin looked at Hua Jin sitting on the sofa with a petrified look on his face. She was secretly amused. He deserved it. Who asked him to be so mean to her? Liang Yin had long realized that Hua Jin had an inexplicable fear of Gong Jie. However, this fear wasn't the traditional kind of fear. There was an inexplicable desire to escape. She also knew that Gong Jie was a little special to Hua Jin. Since he had always been mean to her, she didn't mind using a little trick to get back at him. Chapter 39:26. Since he had been speaking ill of her, she didn't mind using a little trick to get back at him. After more than 10 seconds, Hua Jin suddenly stood up, walked to the bar counter in the room, and started rummaging through the cabinets to look for something. Seeing him busy, Liang Yin asked curiously, "What's wrong?" "Looking for something." "Huh? What are you looking for?" "Looking for..." Hua Jin turned around and a fruit knife suddenly appeared in his hand. The chill almost blinded her eyes. Liang Yin's face was filled with horror. "What are you doing?" "Since you've ruined my innocence and reputation, I'll fight it out with you." Hua Jin held the knife and walked towards Liang Yin. Liang Yin curled up into a ball and immediately said, "Hey, I'm using your body now. Even if you want to die, you can't stab yourself." Hearing this, Hua Jin felt that it made sense. Hence, he rolled up his sleeves and gestured at his wrist and raised the fruit knife high. Liang Yin panicked and immediately rushed up to grab his wrist, trembling in fear. "Hey Hua Jin, are you crazy? I'll fight it out with you." "I know. This is my hand. Calm down, calm down." "Liang Yin, what grudge do I have with you that you have to harm me like this?" "How am I harming you? I see that you two are so compatible, so I'm trying to matchmake you two. Do you think you can matchmake just anyone? Don't you know that humans and demons have different paths? We're not on the same path." Liang Yin was stunned and confused. "What do you mean by humans and demons have different paths? Why don't I understand? I'm a human, he's a demon king, a great demon king, okay? Are you trying to kill me? I'm going to be killed by you. Anyway, if I'm killed, you won't have an easy time either. Now that we're on the same boat, aren't you happy to see me in trouble?" "Very happy. I think it's true love between you two. I'm doing this for your own good. For my own good, right?" Hua Jin nodded and snorted coldly. Suddenly, he thought of something and his lips curled into an evil smile as he said sinisterly, "All right, since you said it's for my own good, then I appreciate your good intentions. But didn't you say that you like Qinzhou?" Hua Jin thought it through, or rather thought of a bad idea. He laughed evilly. "Liang Yin, just you wait, I'll help you chase after Qinzhou." As he spoke, he stood up, snorted coldly and left. Liang Yin was stunned at first. She watched as Hua Jin left the room, but she didn't react for a long time. Ming City Condominium. Qinzhou had just finished his shower when he heard the doorbell ring. He walked to the door. When he opened it, he saw Hua Jin standing outside with a distressed look. Although he didn't say anything, his watery eyes were obviously saying, "Please take me in, please take me in." Qinzhou frowned and crossed his arms as he blocked the doorway. He had no intention of letting him in. What? Where did this stray dog come from? Hua Jin didn't have a tail. Otherwise it would shake very hard. "Qinzhou," Hua Jin looked exhausted. "I'm feeling bitter. What's wrong now? Let me in first." "What for?" Chapter 39:27. However, Qinzhou had no sympathy for him and had no intention of taking him in. "Why did you come to stay with me when there's a hotel available?" "I don't want to stay in the same hotel as that woman. I get angry when I see her." "Oh, looks like the two of you are quarreling again." Qinzhou looked at his watch and said coldly, "There's not much time left. If you don't want to stay in the hotel booked by the production team, you can get another room. Don't come to my place." Hua Jin mumbled, "But I didn't bring any money with me when I came out." When Qinzhou heard this, he casually reached into his pocket from the clothes rack by the entryway cabinet. He pulled out a wallet and was about to give him some money when Qinzhou stopped him. Hua Jin immediately said, "It's okay. You don't have to go through so much trouble. I'll just stay at your place for one night." Qinzhou looked up and said in disgust, "I don't want to." Hua Jin complained, "Can you not give up treatment for your misophobia? What does that have to do with you? You're not friendly at all. As a friend you can't be so cold." "Cold? Are we friends?" Hua Jin said, "If we're not friends, then what are we?" Qinzhou said seriously, "Boss, subordinate." Hua Jin looked hurt. "All right, look at how pitiful you are. Come in." Qinzhou made way for Hua Jin, who felt as if he had just been granted amnesty, to squeeze past him. When he entered the living room, he lay on the sofa and complained, "I don't want to serve that little ancestor. Do you know how hateful she is? She actually pretended to be me and confessed to Gong Jie. Qin Zhou was holding a cup of coffee. When he heard this, he almost spilled the coffee in his hand. She's so daring? Gong Jie was a big devil. Not to mention Hua Jin, even Qin Zhou didn't dare to be too presumptuous in front of him. Perhaps a newborn calf wasn't afraid of a tiger. Liang Yin had no idea what kind of background Gong Jie had, and she didn't know how frightening he was. Therefore she had no respect for Gong Jie at all. Qin Zhou could not help but imagine a kitten reaching out its little paws to scratch the tiger. In comparison, it was quite cute. Qin Zhou, let me ask you a serious question. Qin Zhou quickly put the coffee cup aside. Ask away. You, do you like men or women? When Qin Zhou heard this, he did not get angry. Instead, he asked meaningfully, what do you think? Judging from your temperament, you should like men. Oh. Qin Zhou snorted slowly and said in a threatening tone, I'll give you one more chance. Answer me again. Women. Qin Zhou glared at him unhappily. You already know the answer. I don't care about your personal life. How would I know if you like men or women? Hua Jin rested his chin on his hand and said, in the past, the media said that you and Gu Xingzi were a couple. Qin Zhou reminded him coldly, in the past, there were rumors that you and Yun Shishir were in an underground relationship. Hua Jin said, it's fine if you say this in private. If you say this in front of brother-in-law Mu, he will definitely kill you and then me. Chapter 39-28. At the mention of Mu Yaja, Qin Zhou chuckled and shook his head. A married man can really change so quickly. In the past, Chairman Mu used to be a high-spirited young man, but after he got married, he suddenly became an old cadre. He would never step out of the house after 7 o'clock in the evening. He sleeps early and wakes up early. I heard from Shishir 2 days ago that he has started to focus on his health. At his age, why would he need to maintain his health? He said that he wants to maintain his youthful appearance, live longer, and spend more time with his daughter. Hua Jin said in a daze, daughter's slave. He's hopeless. He's the first daughter slave I've seen in history. Qin Zhou raised his eyebrows and said, however, I think a daughter is better than a son. The little princess is so cute that even I like her. I can't help but want to hug her. If you like her, you can have one yourself. Qin Zhou, how many times have you been in love? Hua Jin asked in a roundabout manner. I can't remember. You can't remember? Because I don't spend much time on relationships, so I can't even remember how many women I've had. It's hard for you to maintain this state. You're an adult after all. Don't you have any emotional needs? Hua Jin was a little suspicious. Also, don't you have any physiological needs? You talk a lot of nonsense today. Qin Zhou asked calmly, say it. I want to see what your purpose is this time. Why don't you tell me your purpose? Someone is interested in you. I'm here to sound her out. There are so many people who are interested in me. Who are you referring to? A man or a woman? Not a man, and not a woman. A transvestite? Qin Zhou raised his eyebrows suspiciously. That's really high class. I can't believe I'm attracted to transvestites now. Ahem. She was a woman and now she's a man. I don't know when she'll become a woman again. What do you think of this type? Qin Zhou heard this and finally looked at Hua Jin. He narrowed his eyes and looked a little strange. Hua Jin looked at him expectantly. Are you referring to Liang Yin? As expected of Qin Zhou. You guessed it right away. Hua Jin didn't want to keep him in suspense. He laughed and said, what do you think? You want to pimp me? This? How is this pimping? Hua Jin said gloomily, I'm only in charge of passing on the message. She likes you and has been gossiping about you. So, I simply came here to test your intentions. If you are interested in her, it's not a bad idea for the two of you to try it out. Even if you want to try dating, at least wait until the two of you have swapped bodies. Hua Jin, he bawled loudly, his face full of resentment. If we have to wait for both of our bodies to change back, who knows how long that will take? Do you think I'll be able to wait until our bodies are swapped back in my lifetime? That's not necessarily true. Qin Zhou smiled and said, who knows, maybe you'll be swapped back in an instant. Who knows, maybe you'll be like this for the rest of your life. Hua Jin covered his face in despair. Just thinking about it, if he were to become a woman, he would have to go through menstruation for the rest of his life. He might even have to go through childbirth and menopause. Chapter 39-29. Qin Zhou seemed to have read his mind and said slowly, actually, a woman's menstrual cycle won't last forever. According to research, menstruation stops at a certain age. From then on, a woman will officially enter old age and won't be troubled by menstruation anymore. Hua Jin rolled his eyes. Can you read minds? Qin Zhou ignored him and walked past him to the bar. He poured himself 2 glasses of champagne, turned around and said gloatingly, "However, I heard that childbirth is very painful for women. Generally, pain is divided into 10 levels. The pain of childbirth is defined as one of the 10 levels." The roots of Hua Jin's teeth began to chatter. "I don't want to have a child. When the time comes, it won't be up to you. It's said that only a woman who has given birth is considered complete. Be strong." "Qin Zhou, you said that childbirth is the most painful for women. Then, is it more painful to have your testicles broken or to have a child?" Hua Jin had turned into a curious child. Qin Zhou hesitated for a long time. "I think it's more painful for a man to have his testicles broken. After all, if his testicles are broken, he might even lose his life." "That makes sense. However, giving birth is a pain that women have to go through, but breaking their testicles isn't." Hua Jin was speechless. "Anyway, don't be so pessimistic. Maybe tomorrow morning when you wake up, you'll find that you've changed back to your original self." Hua Jin's lips twitched. "If it's really as easy as you say, then it'll be great. What if you change back? Nothing is absolute." Hua Jin said coldly, "If I wake up tomorrow morning and find that I've really become myself, I'll be so happy that I'll run around naked." Qin Zhou smirked. "Sure. If you run around naked, remember to take a picture and post it on Weibo. I've already shared it for you." "Ah." Hua Jin stood up and walked to the bathroom. "It's getting late. I'll take a shower and then go to bed." "You really want to stay here?" Qin Zhou reminded him kindly. "This is a single apartment. There's only one bed. Are you sure you want to sleep with me?" "Why? Is there a problem?" "I don't like you. Besides, I don't have any women's clothes here." "It's okay, I'll wear a bathrobe to sleep." With that, Hua Jin added, "I'm not that pretentious. We're both men. Do you think I'm worried that you'll do something to me?" With that, he went into the bathroom and closed the door. Qin Zhou drank the champagne in his hand and leaned lazily on the sofa. After Hua Jin left, Liang Yin could not reach him on the phone. She went next door and listened through the door. The ringtone came from inside the room. Could it be that he ran out alone and didn't bring his phone? This fellow in the middle of the night, could he be in any danger? Forget it. Who cares? Liang Yin did not care where he went. She went back to her room and memorized the script seriously. Then she went to bed. However, when he woke up the next day, he could clearly feel someone lying beside him. The reason why she felt that there was someone else was because when she turned over, her arm had clearly touched a slightly warm skin. She woke up in shock and opened her eyes. However, the scene in front of her almost made her heart stop. Chapter 39:30. There was a person lying beside her. A man. This man's facial features were not unfamiliar. QQQQQjo? She was so frightened that she stuttered. However, the moment her voice came out of her mouth, she realized that the voice she made was her original voice. She widened her eyes and covered her mouth. She was so frightened that she trembled and froze. What the F***CK? What happened to Fei Si? She changed back. Liang Yin had a horrified look on her face as she lightly patted her face. Pa 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 pa. The real touch and the crisp sound immediately pulled her back to reality. Liang Yin gently lifted up her lapel and peeked through her collar. Only then did she realize, she didn't. Where? Inside. Clothes. She was naked inside. Other than the bathrobe, there was nothing else to cover her. Liang Yin immediately covered the bathrobe tightly. Her mind started to wander. Could it be, she and Hua Jin had already been swapped back, right? Then, after Hua Jin ran out last night, he came to Qin Zhou's house and used her body to sleep with Qin Zhou. When she thought of this possibility, Liang Yin's expression suddenly became unfathomable. It couldn't be. Hua Jin used her body to sleep with Qin Zhou. Slept with Qin Zhou. Liang Yin lifted her eyes again and looked at Qin Zhou's face. She saw that Qin Zhou's eyelids were slightly lowered as he slept. His soft eyelashes, thick and handsome features, even though he was still asleep, he still looked very handsome and charming. But, that was not the main point. The two of them slept like that for the whole night? Liang Yin couldn't tell if she slept with Qin Zhou or not. She also didn't know what happened between the two of them last night. She didn't have any experience, so she couldn't tell if there were any changes to the body if something happened between a man and a woman. Liang Yin carefully sat up and glanced down. There wasn't any blood stains on her body. Oh? Her movement seemed to be too loud, and it immediately alarmed Qin Zhou, who was beside her. When Qin Zhou turned around, Liang Yin was so scared that she immediately lay down obediently. On the other side, Hua Jin also woke up. When he woke up, he found that he was in a hotel booked by the crew. He frowned, sat up and looked around. Immediately, a bunch of question marks appeared. What's going on? How did he woke up here? Where's Qingzhou? Wasn't he at Qingzhou's apartment yesterday? After taking a shower, she put on Qingzhou's bathrobe and shamelessly crawled into Qingzhou's bed. Just like that, she fell asleep. Why was she here when she woke up? Sleepwalking? Hua Jin muttered to himself in confusion. Only after a while did he realize that it was him who had made the sound. His eyes widened to the maximum. Could he have changed back? Hua Jin immediately kicked the blanket away, lifted the bathrobe and looked down at his lower body. He had changed back. It was a pleasant surprise that he had regained something he had lost. Hua Jin was so emotional that tears streamed down his face. He hugged his body tightly and jumped off the bed. I've changed back. I've finally changed back. I thought that I would become a woman for the rest of my life. Qingzhou was right. The moment he woke up, he had returned to his original body. Could he be the legendary prophet? Chapter 39-31. Ha 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 ha. Hua Jin was so happy that he almost went crazy. He jumped off the bed, shook his butt and smacked it proudly. This feeling was so familiar. How nostalgic. Hua Jin rushed to the bathroom until that familiar and handsome face was reflected in the mirror again. He rubbed his face. That real feeling reminded him repeatedly. This wasn't a dream. This wasn't a dream. This was real. He was so happy that he cried. Then, Hua Jin touched his body from head to toe. There was a sense of excitement that came from regaining what he had lost. In order to prove once again that this wasn't a dream, Hua Jin gave himself another hard slap. The burning pain made him even more excited. This wasn't a dream. This time Qingzhou really hit the mark. Hua Jin happily took a bath and lay down in the bathtub, enjoying a moment of peace and tranquility. He hadn't enjoyed it so much in a long time. This was because ever since he had become Liang Yin had made it clear that he wasn't allowed to take baths. This was because it wasn't hygienic enough for a girl. Hua Jin loved to take baths. Hence, it was inevitable that he would be ordered to take a bath. As a result, he could only stand in the shower. Sometimes, after filming, taking a bath would make him feel more relaxed. At the same time, on the other side, Liang Yin felt that the days were passing like years. It wasn't the days that felt like years, it was the seconds that felt like years. It was too torturous. She lay upright on the bed with her eyes wide open. She didn't dare to close them for fear that there would be any movement around her. Hence, she just stared at the ceiling and entered a meditative state, not moving at all. She didn't know when Qingzhou would wake up. Or was she going to sleep for the whole day? Should she get out of bed first, put on her clothes and then leave? As Liang Yin thought this, she mulled over it for a while. Finally, she mustered her courage and sat up slowly. As she moved, she kept an eye on Qingzhou beside her. As she lifted the blanket, she carefully revealed a section of her calf. Qingzhou suddenly turned over and his eyelids moved. Then, he's actually awake? Liang Yin was dumbfounded. Qingzhou turned around just in time to see Liang Yin sitting up. The latter subconsciously tightened her bathrobe around her and pretended to be calm. She planned to pretend that she was still Hua Jin and that she had not switched roles yet. He's awake? Qingzhou raised his arm and rested his head on it. He raised his eyebrows and suddenly smiled. Why don't you sleep a little longer? Liang Yin subconsciously tightened her bathrobe and said awkwardly, Oh, I'm already awake. Noticing that she was a little shy, Qingzhou keenly furrowed his brows and was a little suspicious. Hua Jin was not like that. Although Hua Jin was wearing a bathrobe without any protective measures inside, when he was lying on the same bed as him, he was still carefree and didn't seem to mind at all. On the other hand, Liang Yin in front of him was acting shy but pretending to be calm. With just one look, Qingzhou was a little suspicious. It was Liang Yin and not Hua Jin. After being in the entertainment industry for so many years, there were ups and downs. What kind of world had he not seen and what kind of people had he not met? He had long cultivated a smooth and slick mind, especially his eyes, which were very sharp. He was also quite good at judging people. Chapter 39-32. After being in the entertainment industry for so many years, he had experienced all kinds of ups and downs. He had seen all kinds of people and had long trained himself to be smooth and slick in dealing with people. He was also very good at reading people. Back then, when Hua Jin told him about this, he was skeptical. He believed it because he had a sharp eye for people and could clearly feel that Hua Jin was different. He was skeptical because this matter didn't make sense. It wasn't something that could be explained with the knowledge that he had accumulated over the years. But now, Liang Yin gave him an obvious feeling that something wasn't right. If it were Hua Jin, he definitely wouldn't have reacted this way. Qin Zhou was a little suspicious and called out tentatively, "Hua Jin?" Liang Yin froze for a few seconds before she reacted. She turned around and smiled. Instinctively, she ran her fingers through her hair. "Yes." Qin Zhou frowned when he saw her running her fingers through her hair. Only girls would run their fingers through their hair. Usually, girls cared more about their appearance than men, especially their hairstyles. Although some men were more shameless, at least when it came to Hua Jin, he would never do such a thing. Thus, Qin Zhou became more suspicious. Could it be that Hua Jin and Liang Yin had swapped identities? However, Qin Zhou naturally wouldn't ask directly. Instead, he leaned back and deliberately asked some irrelevant questions. "How do you feel?" "Yes. Yesterday, you cried for a long time. Did I hurt you?" Liang Yin didn't quite understand at first. However, when she repeatedly thought about Qin Zhou's words, her heart suddenly started to race. Cried for a long time? What the hell was going on? Actually, Liang Yin hadn't reacted yet. She was a little suspicious about what had happened between her and Qin Zhou yesterday. Her thoughts were already in that direction. Now that Qin Zhou had pointed it out, she started to become more suspicious. Actually, as long as one was a little smarter, they would be able to see through Qin Zhou's probing. First of all, it was Hua Jin who was lying beside Qin Zhou last night. No matter what happened, Hua Jin would never accept another man. Moreover, even if something really happened, Hua Jin was a man. Would he cry like a woman? Secondly, Qin Zhou knew that it was Hua Jin in his body. As a man, no matter how beastly he was, he wouldn't make an example out of Hua Jin. However, Liang Yin was too nervous. She was too concerned about what had happened last night. She was too concerned about it. In fact, after Hua Jin went to bed yesterday, Qin Zhou went to bed. By the time he lay down, Hua Jin had already fallen asleep. Initially, Qin Zhou wanted to get another blanket. However, after tossing and turning, the blanket was too thin. After all, he lived alone and didn't pay much attention to it. The heater was also on in the room. Therefore, he fell asleep just like that. He knew to be careful and avoid it. Hua Jin didn't avoid it at all. He didn't even tie the knot of his bathrobe tightly. It was a little loose, so Qin Zhou slept with his back facing him. Although he knew that it was Hua Jin, he was a man after all. He had some guts. Moreover, Liang Yin was also very beautiful. It was hard not to be tempted by her lying beside him. Out of sight, out of mind. Hence, with that thought in mind, he decided to sleep with his back facing Hua Jin. Chapter 39-33. That night, Qin Zhou prided himself on being a gentleman. He remained calm and unruffled Hua Jin's arms around his waist. It was said that if something happened between a man and a woman in bed, the man would be a beast. But if nothing happened, the man would be worse than a beast. Of course, Qin Zhou would be the latter. Nothing happened, but Qin Zhou saw obvious guilt and awkwardness on Liang Yin's face. At this point, he started to wonder if the two of them had been swapped. Then again, he probed with his suspicions. In the end, Liang Yin let the cat out of the bag. Qin Zhou didn't expose her. To avoid embarrassment. Girls were most particular about their reputation. If he told Liang Yin that he knew she was Liang Yin, then Liang Yin would definitely feel awkward. Qin Zhou pretended not to know. He smiled and said, "I'm just teasing you." Oh. Liang Yin muttered, "Teasing me? Last night, nothing happened between us?" Qin Zhou leaned against the headboard and asked curiously, "Do you want something to happen between us?" Liang Yin cleared her throat, her face flushed red from holding back her laughter. "Of course, I don't." Moreover, Qin Zhou crossed his arms and asked curiously, "If something really happened, wouldn't you feel it?" Liang Yin said innocently, "Why would I feel it? Moreover, I don't know how I would feel if something happened." Qin Zhou smiled and didn't say anything. Instead, he got off the bed. As he buttoned up his shirt, he said, "All right, have your breakfast and go home." If Hua Jin had heard Qin Zhou say that, he would have asked sarcastically, "Why are you in such a hurry to chase me away?" But now, Liang Yin nodded like a chick pecking at rice. "Oh, I got it." Liang Yin went into the bathroom, washed her face and brushed her teeth. When she came out, she took her clothes from the clothes rack. Although she didn't like the fact that she didn't have a change of clothes, however, it was better than running around naked. Hua Jin. Liang Yin gnashed her teeth in anger. He would settle the score with this fellow when he got back. After putting on her clothes, Liang Yin walked out of the bedroom and heard the sizzling sound of oil coming from the kitchen. The apartment was a bachelor apartment. The kitchen was semi-open and there was a bar counter. Qin Zhou was wearing an apron. There was a frying pan on the induction cooker. Ding. 4 pieces of toast popped out of the toaster stove beside it. Take a seat. Qin Zhou's hearing was amazing. Even though his back was facing Liang Yin, he knew that she was walking over. Liang Yin sat down in front of the counter in a daze. After a while, Qin Zhou turned around and placed a tray in front of her. He gave her 3 bottles of jam, blueberry jam, condensed milk, and peanut butter. I don't know what flavor you like, but these 3 flavors are my favorite. As Qin Zhou said this, he placed the 4 pieces of toast on her tray and pushed a glass of warm milk in front of her. Holding the frying pan, he carefully placed the sweetened poached eggs on the tray. Liang Yin was flattered. I have breakfast the moment I wake up. Just nice, I'm hungry. I have 2 slices of bread, a poached egg, and a bottle of milk every day. Qin Zhou also prepared his portion and sat in front of the counter, facing Liang Yin. Do you need anything else? Chapter 39-34. Actually, I didn't have the habit of eating breakfast in the past. But there was a period of time when my stomach wasn't feeling well, so I just ate it carelessly every day. Not carelessly at all. Liang Yin immediately said, I think this breakfast is very exquisite. Exquisite? It's all done casually. It's already very exquisite. At least I can't make this kind of poached egg. Liang Yin liked the sweet poached egg very much. The soft yolk was easy to poke, and coupled with the fragrant white, she didn't have such skills. But, how did you make such a heart-shaped shape? Qin Zhou looked at her as if she was an idiot. There's a special grinding tool. Oh. Liang Yin also realized that her question was too stupid. She knocked her head in annoyance and looked around curiously as she ate her toast. Seeing that there was an oven in the kitchen, she asked in surprise, You know how to use an oven? Yeah. When I'm bored, I like to think about baking. You know how to bake. Liang Yin was even more surprised. You're really a good family man. Qin Zhou smiled. A necessary skill for a single man. Because I don't have a girlfriend, I have to do everything myself. Liang Yin didn't know why, but her face blushed again and she lowered her head shyly. She felt a little embarrassed. She actually liked Qin Zhou quite a lot. It was just that she didn't seem to be a qualified girlfriend. In terms of cooking, she didn't seem to have any talent. Even the most basic instant noodles would be boiled dry sometimes. Even if she really became Qin Zhou's girlfriend, she would probably be despised. She only knew how to do the housework, but she didn't know how to cook. Yeah, she decided. She wanted to learn how to cook. There was a saying that went, to capture a man's heart, you must capture his stomach. Liang Yin made up her mind. She looked up, intending to ask for more information. Do you have an ideal type? Qin Zhou looked up, looked at her deeply and said meaningfully, We're all men, so our ideal type should be roughly the same. I don't understand. Everyone's aesthetic and ideal type is different. Black hair, waist length, beautiful, big breasts, perky but nothing more. When Liang Yin heard that she wanted a big boob, she said sourly, I heard that women with big boobs are more brainless. It's okay. My woman doesn't need brains. It's best if she's pretty, sweet, and lovable. As long as she's as beautiful as a flower, I'll take care of her. With Qin Zhou's words, Liang Yin felt that she had no chance. She instinctively lowered her head and glanced at her own. See can't be considered big. It could only be considered normal. Shallow. Liang Yin complained. Qin Zhou smiled and smeared the toast with blueberry jam. Then he curled his lips meaningfully. Men are all superficial. Liang Yin. Qin Zhou paused for a moment before continuing. However, if you're particularly outstanding in other aspects, even if you don't have a devilish figure, it's not impossible to make an exception for you. For example? The kind that knows how to act coquettishly. Acting coquettishly? Liang Yin was a little surprised. You like girls who act coquettishly? Girls who act coquettishly are the cutest. I don't like girls who act coquettishly. Chapter 39-35. Liang Yin licked her lips but did not say anything. She touched her cheeks as if she did not know how to act coquettishly. Qin Zhou took the last bite of his toast and glanced at her. He rubbed his fingers to clean the breadcrumbs on them. Do you still want milk? Okay. A cup of warm milk in the morning is better for the stomach. Liang Yin stared blankly at Qin Zhou as he stood up. For a moment she could not shift her gaze away. Hiss! In front of the mirror, Huajin picked up the mousse and sprayed it on his blow-dried hair. He carefully combed and styled his hair. He wrapped a towel around his waist. As he combed and styled his hair, he noticed from the corner of his eye that his chest muscles had shrunk a little. Tisk. It had only been a while, but Liang Yin did not pay attention to training. Even her chest muscles had shrunk a little. Good. Hard. Bang. Damn it, he had trained for so long to develop such poor chest muscles, but it had caused Liang Yin to lose them. How infuriating. Hua Jin pinched his chest, feeling a little dispirited. It's okay. Since it's back now, I'll start training again later. Hua Jin touched his chest again and checked his abdominal muscles. Fortunately, his abdominal muscles did not shrink. He was extremely lucky. Ding dong. The doorbell rang. Hua Jin poked his head out and looked in the direction of the door. Could it be that Liang Yin had returned? He walked to the door and looked through the peephole. He almost suffocated when he saw who it was. Gong? He had just uttered a word when he covered his mouth tightly. Gong Jia. Why is it him? What is he doing here? Hua Jin leaned on the door again and peeked through the peephole, only to see Gong Jia staring fixedly at the peephole. It was as if the man could see him through the peephole. For a moment he felt that he had nowhere to hide. He had to pretend that he was not here. Hua Jin turned around and tiptoed back to the living room, pretending that he was not here. Bang! A loud sound was heard. Gong Jia kicked the door hard. Open the door. Hua Jin shuddered violently, and his shoulders shrunk subconsciously. He clenched his fists in grief and indignation. Outside the door, Gong Jia said lazily, Hua Jin, I know you're inside. How did he know? Could it be that he had X-ray vision? Hua Jin turned around suspiciously and bit his lip nervously. This Liang Yin. This pig of a teammate. Did she really confess to Gong Jia? Hua Jin had always felt that Liang Yin must be joking with him. If it was a joke, why did the Gong Jia come to the hotel? Open the door. Gong Jia said again, I'm warning you, my patience is limited. Hua Jin was flustered. He wanted to go back to the living room to get his coat and put it on, but no matter how hard he searched, he could not find where Liang Yin had left it. Gong Jia kicked the door again, looking like he was about to break in. He ran his fingers through his hair, walked to the door and took a deep breath. Only then did he muster up the courage to open the door. Then, with a smile that he thought was extremely bright and friendly, he looked at the man outside the door. Master Jia? The brighter Hua Jin's smile was, the darker Gong Jia's face became. Outside the door, Gong Jia looked Hua Jin up and down. He was half naked with a towel wrapped around his waist. His hair was carefully combed, and the smile on his face was as fake as it could be. Chapter 39-36. No. I didn't. Then why did you wake up so late? Ah. Hua Jin immediately yawned and pretended to be sleepy. I guess I just woke up. He was halfway through his sentence when Gong Jia narrowed his eyes at his meticulously combed hairstyle. Then he glanced at the sleepy expression on his face. Gong Jia's thin lips curled up coldly. Obviously, he didn't think that his reason was convincing. Do you know how to sleepwalk? I haven't woken up yet. I've already combed my hair. Gong Jia raised his eyebrows at the man's embarrassed expression and said calmly, Say it. What's the matter? What the hell? Hua Jin was a little frustrated. Gong Jia came to his hotel early in the morning and gave him a big surprise. In the end he asked him what was the matter. Hua Jin was angry, but he didn't dare to say anything. He still smiled and said, Nothing much. Why would I look for you? Nothing much. You asked me to meet you at the hotel? Gong Jia was getting more suspicious. Hua Jin was shocked and stunned when he heard this. What? He asked him to meet him at the hotel? When did this happen? Could it be, Liang Yin asked him to meet her? This guy, Gong Jia had been observing his expression. Initially he was still wondering if the person who provoked him at the Mu residence yesterday was Hua Jin or Liang Yin. He thought that if it was Hua Jin he would never dare to tease him. What kind of guts does Hua Jin have to make fun of me? However, Gong Jia was now completely sure that the person who was spouting nonsense at the Mu residence yesterday was Hua Jin. Their identities had been swapped long ago. At the thought of this, Gong Jia's lips curled into a cold smirk as he walked into the room. Locking his gaze on Hua Jin, he closed the door behind him. With a click, the door locked automatically. Hua Jin was still feeling humiliated from being betrayed by Liang Yin. When he heard the door, he immediately looked up and saw that Gong Jia had actually stepped into the room. The door behind him was already closed. Hua Jin looked at Gong Jia and then at the door. He instinctively took a few steps back. He wanted to laugh, but the laugh that came out was uglier than crying. Master Jia, what are you doing? Hua Jin immediately moved aside. Since you're here, have a seat. As he spoke, he turned around and walked towards the living room like a deserter. He poured tea and water in a flurry. Gong Jia crossed his arms and calmly observed his brother's every move before he suddenly blurted out, I've thought it through. Hua Jin raised his head with a puzzled expression. What do you mean? Didn't you say yesterday that you have feelings for me? Gong Jie looked serious. Why don't we try to get along? Everywhere? Hua Jin was so frightened that he almost bit his tongue in his stutter. He looked embarrassed. What do you mean by that? Were you serious about what you said yesterday? Gong Jie's tone suddenly became extremely stern. Are you toying with me? No. How would I dare to toying with you? Gong Jie said. Then you're serious. Hua Jin was speechless. He chose to play dead. Don't play dead. Gong Jie harumphed coldly. He walked straight to the sofa and sat down. Patting his thigh, he said, Come here. Chapter 39-37. Was this the rhythm of letting him sit on his lap? Even if he really wanted to do something, wasn't this rhythm a little too fast? Hua Jin was a little confused by Gong Jie's words. I told you to come over. Oh, Hua Jin did not dare to go against his wishes. He walked over fearfully and sat upright on Gong Jie's lap. He felt that the chill from the iceberg behind him was getting more obvious. Did I ask you to sit on my lap? Hua Jin was so scared that he shivered, but he wanted to cry but had no tears. Weren't you the one who slapped your thigh and asked me to sit? Wasn't that what you meant? Even if you were summoning a dog, you couldn't just give out commands. He shuddered in fright and subconsciously tried to shift his butt onto the sofa. Gong Jie, however, gripped his waist in displeasure and he could no longer move. Gong Jie leaned close to his ear and whispered, Are you that impatient? His charming breath brushed against his face, as if countless cat claws were scratching him, itchy and hot. Hua Jin was a little depressed. What do you mean impatient? What else? Gong Jie asked calmly. Why else would you sit on my lap so intimately? Why, are you playing hard to get and now you want to seduce me? When Hua Jin heard this, he flew into a rage out of humiliation, but he did not flare up. He held back his anger and said indifferently, If you're really such an upright person, how could I seduce you? Unless you like men too? That's impossible. Why is it impossible? Gong Jie raised his eyebrows and gently pinched his face. How do you know that I'm not interested in men? Maybe it's just like what you said, I haven't fully developed it. Maybe what you said yesterday has developed me. This action was so intimate that Hua Jin was instantly like a frightened cat, his hair standing on end. What do you mean? Didn't you say yesterday that you like me not because you like men but because the person you like is a man? Gong Jie hugged Hua Jin's waist affectionately. Didn't you say yesterday that you like me not because you like men but because the person you like is a man? Did he say that? It must have been Liang Yin again. Hua Jin's face darkened even more. Once again he deeply experienced what it meant by extreme joy begets sorrow. Actually, I didn't say those words yesterday. Do you believe me? As Hua Jin spoke, he looked at Gong Jie with a sincere expression. But he saw Gong Jie staring at him coldly. Hua Jin, all right then. Forget it if you don't believe me. Hua Jin said angrily, Anyway, I didn't say those things. Liang Yin said those things to you on purpose to get back at me. I'm innocent. I've always found it strange. What's strange? Tell me what kind of man would make another man blush? Unless there's something wrong with it. Gong Jie came to this conclusion. Hua Jin was speechless. There's nothing to be afraid of admitting that you like a man. When Hua Jin heard that, he was even more speechless. He stood up angrily and said, Anyway, you won't believe me no matter what I say. It's superfluous to explain. Hua Jin was about to leave, but Gong Jie held on tightly to his waist. Let go. Chapter 39-38. This scene frightened Hua Jin quite a bit. Gong Jie did not put all his weight on him. However, when Hua Jin's gaze fell on his face, it was as if his cold eyes were going to burn through his face. Hua Jin was about to speak when he heard a beep. The door opened. Liang Yin swiped the room card and walked into the living room. However, when she stepped into the living room, she saw the scene on the sofa. She was instantly dumbfounded. What was going on? She was caught off guard and saw such a scene. Hua Jin was also stunned. He did not expect that Liang Yin would come back at this time. She had the room card with her, but she did not expect that Liang Yin would come back at this time. He was stunned for a moment. When he came back to his senses, he immediately became unusually angry. Liang Yin. He yelled at her sternly. Liang Yin instantly felt that things were not going well. In a short period of time, she immediately regained her train of thought. Yesterday at the Mu residence, she had arranged to meet Gong Jie at the hotel. She had said that she had something important to discuss with him. Initially, she had wanted to use this opportunity to intimidate Hua Jin. She did not expect that Gong Jie would really come back. In the end, she did not expect that Gong Jie seemed to take it seriously. Liang Yin shrunk her shoulders and immediately turned around, wanting to escape. Gong Jie turned around and looked at Hua Jin, who was struggling to get up. Liang Yin, you're not allowed to leave. Come back and explain everything to me. Before he could finish his sentence, Liang Yin opened the door and slipped out. She did not forget to close the door behind her. Bang! A loud sound was heard. The door was shut. Hua Jin's face became even more distorted. This Liang Yin was a fraud. A fraud. He wanted to strangle her to death. Gong Jie looked at Hua Jin's reaction and then looked at Liang Yin's guilty look. He was not stupid. Since he was the leader of Hurricane and had outstanding IQ, he naturally figured out what was going on. It seemed that the person who had confessed to him yesterday was really Liang Yin. Maybe this was a prank aimed at Hua Jin. However, even though he had figured out the whole story, he did not show any signs of understanding. Hua Jin looked at Gong Jie and immediately explained seriously, the person who confessed to you yesterday was really not me. Gong Jie remained silent. His eyes, which were as deep as an ancient pond, were devoid of any ripples. Hua Jin felt a little hopeless. Gong was so smart that he could not figure out what was going on. He had already explained it this way. If he still did not understand, then Hua Jin really did not know how to explain it. How infuriating. Gong Jie smirked and lowered his head. The tip of his nose was almost touching Hua Jin's nose. The distance between the two of them was closer than ever. He even felt that the air he breathed in was coming from between his lips and the tip of his nose. I'll let you off this time. Gong Jie let go of him and sat up slowly. Hua Jin saw him get up and did not dare to let his guard down. He stood up warily and looked very guarded. Gong Jie did not care about his vigilance. He stood up and walked towards the door. It was only after Gong Jie left the room that Hua Jin heaved a sigh of relief, feeling as if a heavy burden had been lifted from his shoulders. Pervert. Liang Yin went back to her room. She was restless. She stood up for a while and then paced back and forth. The doorbell suddenly rang. Chapter 39:39. Liang Yin was shocked, but she knew that Hua Jin must have come looking for her. She would have to face him sooner or later. Liang Yin clenched her fists and walked to the door. She opened the door with fear and trepidation, only to see Hua Jin standing at the door, glaring at her. The anger on his face was scarier than ever. Liang Yin. Here. Liang Yin stood at attention. Then, like a country bumpkin, she respectfully welcomed him into the room. Boss, don't be angry. This isn't. I was just kidding, but I didn't think that the joke would get out of hand. Hua Jin questioned, you had a date with Gong Jie yesterday? Liang Yin didn't dare to hide anything and nodded reluctantly. You were the one who asked him to meet at the hotel. Yeah, Liang Yin hurriedly explained, I really didn't think that he would come. What else did you do behind my back? I didn't do anything. Scam. Stupid teammate, how can you scam me like this? Hua Jin snorted angrily. However, when Liang Yin came back to her senses, she straightened her back. It was obvious that she had thought of something after hearing what he said. Suddenly, her anger flared up and she grabbed him by the collar. It was said that women changed their faces faster than flipping the pages of a book. Even Hua Jin didn't think that Liang Yin would change her face so suddenly. You're still talking about me? What about you? How did you scam me? Where did you go last night? When Hua Jin heard this, he understood what was going on. He turned his face away guiltily and didn't want to look at him anymore. I was just joking and it didn't cause you any harm. What about you? You actually went to Qingzhou's place last night. Hua Jin retorted stubbornly, is there a problem? He didn't think that there was a problem. Men's brain circuits were usually bigger, but women were more sensitive and delicate. Hua Jin didn't think there was anything wrong with sleeping in the same bed as Qingzhou. He even asked, how does it feel to wake up with your idol? What do you mean? Give me back my reputation. Hua Jin argued, it's just sleeping in the same bed. What's wrong with that? How is it a matter of reputation? Liang Yin sneered, ha. What was the problem? How did you guys sleep last night? Just like in the past. Hua Jin replied in all seriousness. After I took a shower, I slept at his place. Ha. Not only that, right? You even shared a bed with him. If it weren't for the two of us swapping places today, I wouldn't even know that you're ruining my body like this. Liang Yin was obviously very angry. Hua Jin, on the other hand, was full of righteousness. How is this a waste? I haven't been in a relationship yet, and I'm randomly sharing a bed with a man. Don't you think it's ridiculous? What do you mean by ridiculous? Hua Jin harumphed and purposely teased, don't you have a crush on him? Aren't I creating an opportunity for you guys? Ah. Liang Yin was even angrier when she heard this. She was so angry that she laughed. Is this how you create opportunities? Your so-called opportunity is to create an opportunity to share a bed. Also you're only wearing a bathrobe? Because I didn't bring a change of clothes. But you can't sleep with him? Chapter 39-40. What's done can't be undone? Liang Yin was completely horrified. This Hua Jin actually dared to have such an idea. Oh, I see. Then you're really doing it for my own good. Then why didn't you and Gong Jie do it? Pounce on him? Speaking of which, when I opened the door just now, I found you and Gong Jie on the bed. Did I interrupt your progress? It would have been better if she hadn't mentioned this. The moment she did, Hua Jin was instantly enraged. You still dare to talk about it? Let me ask you, why did you ask Gong Jie out at the hotel? What's your motive? Liang Yin cleared her throat and then imitated Hua Jin's teasing tone. She said lightly, what's done can't be undone. What's done can't be undone. Hua Jin reached out his finger and poked her forehead angrily. What's done can only be done between men and women. Do you know that you're pushing me into a sea of fire? Why would I harm you? Liang Yin pretended to be kind and said, no way, I see that you like him. How can you tell that I like him? If you don't like him, Liang Yin paused and raised her eyebrows. Then why do you look shy? Shy? How can you tell that I'm shy? You can't hide your shy expression. Hua Jin, if you really don't like him, you wouldn't have such an attitude. You're so timid. Even if you like a man, there's nothing wrong with that, right? Liang Yin's words undoubtedly stunned Hua Jin. He was still stubborn. I don't have any feelings for him at all. That's just what you think. Liang Yin asked again, you haven't made it clear. Did anything happen between you and Qinzhou yesterday? Hua Jin was still immersed in his messy thoughts. Hearing Liang Yin's question, she asked impatiently, it doesn't matter whether it happened or not. Don't you know? How would I know what happened last night? I don't have any experience. Is your first time still there? Hua Jin suddenly asked. Even though Liang Yin and Hua Jin were no longer in a normal relationship, she still felt a little uncomfortable being questioned like this. She blushed and said, I haven't had a boyfriend yet. What do you think? You haven't had a boyfriend yet? Because my ideal type is Tang Yu. And now? Hua Jin teased, is he still your ideal type? No. A look of disgust appeared on Liang Yin's face. I must have been blind to fall in love with such an idol. If a girl doesn't have it for the first time, it will be very painful. How did you know? Hua Jin looked at her as if she was an idiot. Liang Yin blushed and didn't ask any more. But she vaguely remembered that Qinzhou had asked her a question. Did I hurt you last night? This sentence had a deep meaning behind it. Liang Yin was still a little doubtful. Are you sure nothing happened last night? I'm sure. Hua Jin said seriously, come on, I'm a man of principles. Do you think I'll play pranks on other people's bodies? You only wore a bathrobe and nothing underneath to sleep on the same bed with Qinzhou. That's quite unprincipled, Hua Jin retorted. Who told you to provoke me first? Chapter 39-41. Hua Jin said angrily, at the end of the day, you shouldn't have used my body to provoke the Gong Jie. Did you ask for my opinion when you did that? Since you didn't ask for my opinion when you played a prank, why couldn't I? Just because you're a girl, does that give you special privileges? People should learn to put themselves in other people's shoes, what should be done and what shouldn't be done. Since you said that two people should be responsible for each other, then did you do it? Liang Yin was speechless. Initially, she hadn't taken this matter to heart. However, after Hua Jin's reminder, she suddenly realized that she had indeed gone overboard with what she had done. I'm sorry, Liang Yin immediately apologized. I didn't think that you would mind so much. Anyone would mind. Hua Jin continued, yesterday nothing happened between Qinzhou and me, I only tried to sound him out. But he's so smart that he immediately guessed that I was trying to sound him out for you. Don't worry, even if the two of us slept on the same bed, nothing substantial happened, so it wouldn't be a big deal. But you said that you actually stole a kiss from the Gong Jie? You said that I went overboard, but I haven't said that you did. As Hua Jin said this, he sat down on the sofa, picked up the script on the table and started to read it seriously. Liang Yin didn't dare to disturb him, but she kept thinking about how to apologize to him and beg for his forgiveness. Hence, she stayed in the room and refused to leave. Hua Jin didn't bother her and let her stay on the sofa. He hadn't memorized the script before, but since he had switched back, he had to memorize the script properly since they were going to shoot tomorrow. Unknowingly, it was already noon. Hua Jin finished memorizing a few pages of lines. When he lifted his head to stretch his body, he realized that Liang Yin was curled up on the sofa and had already fallen asleep. He walked over and gave her a gentle nudge. Liang Yin woke up instantly and sat up. She saw Hua Jin standing in front of her with no expression on his face. "Did you not sleep well last night?" When Liang Yin heard this, she shook her head and said, "No, I don't know. I just felt very sleepy, maybe there was nothing to do." Suddenly, she didn't need to memorize the script. Instead, she didn't feel relaxed and only bored. When Hua Jin heard this, he smiled and said, "Let's go out for lunch. After lunch we'll rehearse." "Oh," Liang Yin's question, "you're not angry anymore?" "Yes. I'm very." Hua Jin then added, "But men shouldn't stoop to a woman's level. She's as I lest tssst, and we'll sour?" Since she had already said so, Hua Jin did not say anything else and changed the topic. "What do you want to eat?" "I have soft." "Okay. All right." At the mention of pizza, Liang Yin suddenly smiled mischievously and said, "Boss, I'm working for you. You haven't paid me yet." Hua Jin took out his cell phone and asked, "Do you still remember your bank account number?" "Yeah, I remember." "What? Give it to me. Are you going to pay me?" Chapter 3942. Hua Jin said generously, "I'll transfer the money directly to your account." "Okay." Liang Yin gave him her bank account number. Hua Jin held his cell phone. After a while, Liang Yin's cell phone beeped with a notification that the money had been transferred to her account. Liang Yin picked up her cell phone and glanced at it. It was a notification from her account that she had received $1 million. She was so shocked that her eyes widened. "What? 1 million? Yeah. So much." Liang Yin had never seen so much money before and was dumbfounded. $1 million. She had only acted in a few scenes for him to earn so much money. Liang Yin felt that this money was like a pie that had fallen from the sky. "You acted in 2 episodes for me. I told you before that we'll split the pay in half. $1 million for 2 episodes. As Hua Jin said this, his lips curled into a smile. "Moreover, you acted very well. You deserve this pay." Liang Yin hugged her cell phone in surprise, her face full of happiness. Seeing her expression, Hua Jin couldn't help but laugh. "Do you feel like you've suddenly become a nouveau riche? Haha. Did you know? Some people in my hometown demolished a few hundred square meters of private property. Guess how much it cost to demolish it?" "How much?" $800,000. Hua Jin expressed his surprise. "What kind of remote place is your hometown? Why is it only $800,000? Anyway, it's not far from the capital. But it's been developed into a highway." After all, to Liang Yin, getting $1 million after acting in such a small role was undoubtedly the same as winning the lottery. As Liang Yin said this, she stood up and patted Hua Jin's shoulder generously. "Let's go, I'll treat you to pizza today." "Yo, boss, Liang is so generous." There was a Western restaurant in the film studio complex. It was very secretive. Basically, it was a private room. Most paparazzi wouldn't be able to sneak in. Hence, most celebrities liked to dine at this Western restaurant. On the way, they bumped into some celebrities. When they saw Hua Jin, they greeted him respectfully. Although Hua Jin wasn't considered a veteran actor in the entertainment industry, his acting skills were one of the best among the new generation of male idols. The producers and directors in the industry thought highly of him and he had many roles. At the entrance of the Western restaurant, they bumped into the assistant director of Heavy Snow. Usually, in a film crew, most of the assistant directors were in charge of casting. Upon seeing Hua Jin, the assistant director grumbled to him. "Something happened in the production crew recently." "What happened?" Hua Jin could not help but express his concern when he saw the assistant director's frown. "Didn't you know? Li Jin was kicked out. It flew." Hua Jin was a little surprised. "Oh, speaking of which, who is Li Jing?" "Oh." The director knew that Hua Jin usually did not get close to other actresses, so he mentioned, "She's the one who played Gu Huanyao." "Auntie?" In the production crew, although Li Jin looked younger, she was still old. Hence, everyone in the crew called her Auntie. Why was she kicked out? Chapter 3943. The assistant director's face was full of worry as he said, "Look, we've been choosing and choosing but we haven't picked anyone." Liang Yin stood at the side bored to death. She was sizing up the people coming and going. On average, 1 out of 5 people was a big star. She watched them with great interest. Usually, she wouldn't have such an opportunity to be in close contact with these big stars. She would only catch a few glances on TV. At the film studio, any one of them would be a star. Liang Yin was already used to it. It wasn't like her first day on set, when she was surrounded by big stars and felt a little uneasy. Now she had a normal attitude towards stars. She felt that these stars were good at acting and were pretty, but they were actually no different from ordinary people. Especially after spending so much time with Hua Jin, she felt that stars were also ordinary people. It was just entertainment that gave them the halo of idols. Hua Jin chatted with the assistant director for a while, then he turned around and called out to Liang Yin, "Liang Yin, go in." Liang Yin turned around, nodded, and walked towards Hua Jin. Seeing Liang Yin beside Hua Jin, the assistant director's eyes lit up. "Hua Jin, who is this?" "Oh," Hua Jin introduced her, "my assistant." "Are all your assistants so pretty? I don't remember you being this assistant before. Are you talking about Xiaoqi?" Hua Jin got angry at the mention of Xiaoqi. Xiaoqi was currently doing advanced training at the company's headquarters. When she came back, he would find a chance to get rid of her. He was a very vengeful person. Especially after seeing Xiaoqi's ugly face, he was secretly certain that when he had the chance, he would get rid of her. The assistant director, on the other hand, was sizing up Liang Yin seriously. His gaze was full of admiration, and he praised her from time to time. "Your assistant looks quite like a star. What's her name?" Liang Yin smiled and introduced herself naturally, "Liang Yin." "Liang Yin? That's a good name." As the assistant director spoke, he smiled and asked Liang Yin, "Do you want to come for the audition? Now there's an empty role in the production team, and we're worried that we can't find a suitable candidate." Liang Yin was a little surprised. She did not expect to be invited to an audition. When Hua Jin heard this, he was also a little surprised. However, he had originally thought that since there was an opportunity, he might as well let Liang Yin have a try. After all, her image was not bad and her acting skills were also very good. He belonged to the gifted type. He originally wanted to wait until dinner to ask for Liang Yin's opinion. But he did not expect that the assistant director would choose Liang Yin at first glance and invite her. Hua Jin also felt that Liang Yin could give it a try. "Are you willing?" As she was Hua Jin's assistant, the assistant director's attitude was more polite. Liang Yin glanced at Hua Jin as if asking for his opinion. Hua Jin immediately said, "If you're willing, you can give it a try." "Okay." Liang Yin smiled and said, "It's my honor." "That's good." The assistant director nodded and said, "Tomorrow afternoon, you will follow Hua Jin to the set and recite a few lines. If Director Gu sees it and says it's okay, then you'll pass." As the role of the female lead was not very important, the basic knowledge of lines and acting skills were not particularly demanding. It mainly depended on one's state and looks. Chapter 39-44. The assistant director still had something to do. He said goodbye to Hua Jin and left in a hurry. Liang Yin watched as the assistant director left. She turned around and glanced at Hua Jin. She was obviously a little conflicted. "Audition. I didn't expect to receive an audition invitation." Hua Jin smiled and pushed the door open. As he walked towards the private room, he said, "Do you like acting?" "I didn't like it before, but after interacting with it, I find it interesting." When Hua Jin heard this, his lips curled into a smile. "Filming isn't that easy. In your eyes, you might think that acting is just about having a lot of money, a lot of fans, limitless glory, and everyone knows your name. But in reality, acting is not that simple. You might be slandered, spread rumors, or even be subjected to online violence. When people scold you, you can't talk back. Why? Because you're a public figure." Hua Jin said, "Even if you use a fake account to scold people, you'll still suffer a lot if the netizens find out. That's scary. But if you have a strong background, no one will dare to touch you." "I don't have a strong background." Liang Yin was a little scared. After all, she didn't particularly like acting. She was interested in acting because the pay was high and sometimes she felt that acting was quite fun. But if it was really as scary as Hua Jin said, she was a little scared. "But you can sign a contract with Qinzhou." Hua Jin smiled mischievously. "If you become his artist, won't you have a lot of opportunities to interact with him?" "Agent?" An agent is the agent of an artist's career. A good agent has a lot of resources and can help you with everything outside of work. Liang Yin was a little moved when she heard this. She admired Qinzhou. She felt that Qinzhou had a very mature temperament. It was a charm that men of Tang Yu and Hua Jin's age didn't have. Many girls liked men who were older than them. Mature, steady, reliable, and gave them a sense of security. She wasn't a shy person. If she liked someone she would say it directly. Is he willing to sign me? Hua Jin said, I'll help you find out later. All right. Liang Yin said with a smile, after it's done, I'll treat you to something delicious. Who cares? Also, keep your distance from me. If you cause another soul misalignment, I'll definitely jump off a building. When Liang Yin heard this, she also kept a distance from him with lingering fear. Especially when they passed by the fountain in the courtyard, the two of them were especially vigilant. As the saying goes, once bitten, twice shy. After lunch, the two of them went back home. Liang Yin accompanied Hua Jin to go through the script. Hua Jin also gave her the lines for Ubuteri. Liang Yin took it back and memorized it seriously. The next day, Hua Jin brought Liang Yin to the set. He acted, while Liang Yin was brought to the audition by the assistant director. When Hua Jin finished filming, he saw that Liang Yin was already sitting in the waiting area. However, her expression was a little strange. It was indescribably strange. He walked over and asked her, how was the audition? Was okay. Okay? This word seemed a little ambiguous. Liang Yin's expression was obviously not right. Chapter 39:45. Director Gu is quite satisfied with me, but the assistant director said that I did well in the audition. However, there is another person who wants the role. If I want to act, I have to go through a second round of auditions. A second round of auditions? When Hua Jin heard this, he didn't think much of it. Usually there is only one round of auditions. Why would there be a second round? Is the assistant director trying to take advantage of you? Take advantage of me? Hua Jin nodded and said, yes. After all, the roles in this production are all highly sought after. Basically, once you act in it, you will be famous. There are many small-time actresses who want to act in it, but Director Gu has always looked down on them. The assistant director has been racking his brains over this matter. I think he wants to use this opportunity to get some benefits from you. Money? Yes. I also thought that he wanted to use this as an excuse to ask me for packaging fees, so I asked him indirectly. He said that I don't need to pay for packaging fees. Hua Jin felt that it was even more strange. So when is the second round of auditions? Liang Yin answered honestly, tonight. Tonight? Yes, I'll go to his room. He said that he wants me to act one more time so that he can think about it carefully. As Liang Yin said this, her expression became even more strange. But won't it be too suspicious if I go to his room tonight? He won't want to sleep with me, will he? When Hua Jin heard this, his face darkened. He wants you to go to his room? Tonight? Yes. Do you even need to ask? When Hua Jin heard this, he was also very angry. He sat beside her and said, you're not allowed to go. He obviously wants to sleep with you. When you go into his room, you won't be able to tell how many people are in the room and whether you can walk out of it. This assistant director also had a criminal record. Rather than a criminal record, it was more like one was willing to be hit and the other was willing to be hit. As the assistant director, he was in charge of the casting process. Other than the roles that the sponsors and the director had assigned, the other roles depended on what he said. Naturally, there would be people who wanted to climb up the ladder. In fact, there were many of them. However, this assistant director was known for his ugly table manners in the industry. He was quite ruthless when it came to playing with women, especially when he used the excuse of discussing the script to invite two popular actresses to talk about the script. It would have been fine if it was just the unspoken rules, but he had already instructed the paparazzi to release the news in advance and take pictures of the two actresses following him into the hotel. Then he held onto these photos and waited for the drama to finish filming and enter the promotional period. Then he casually released these photos, but it was still considered a sensation for a while. In reality, no one cared about these two young actresses. All they cared about was the dark side of the entertainment industry that no one knew about. Because of this, the show became popular and was bought over by a media website at a high price. The viewership ratings also broke records. However, the reputations of these two young actresses had been completely ruined. They had been used as stepping stones and there was no place for them to cry. Later on, she had plastic surgery, changed her name and took on a few dramas, but they were all lukewarm. As for this assistant director, because of the unbreakable publicity, he was still doing well. The entertainment industry was like this. It was an abyss of suffering. It was easy to dodge a spear in the open, but hard to defend against a stab in the dark. In order to rise and fall in the industry, it depended on who was ruthless enough. Usually, those who stood at the top were those who could go all out. Chapter 39:46. Liang Yin still had a lingering fear when she heard this. Luckily, she had reported this matter to Hua Jin in advance because she also felt that it was quite suspicious. That was why she had her suspicions and told Hua Jin about it. She didn't expect that there would be so much involved. Then I won't go. Liang Yi knew that this opportunity was very precious. If she didn't go, she might even offend the assistant director. However, she really didn't want to come into contact with such things. If this was the price to pay for being famous, she was willing to give it up. Sigh. Liang Yi had underestimated her own experience. Hua Jin saw her disappointed look and comforted her. It's okay. It's not like this role is the only thing you want. Later, I'll ask Qin Zhou to see if there are any vacancies in the cast. No need. Liang Yi smiled and said, actually, I think being an assistant is pretty good. I can help you with the scenes and also be a bystander. In this industry, there were often some shocking things that could be gossiped about. Although it was quite world-shattering, Liang Yi was used to it. She enjoyed the gossip. Hua Jin didn't take it to heart. After all, Liang Yi didn't seem to take it to heart either. At night, Hua Jin was reading the script when his cell phone suddenly rang. He picked up the phone and realized that it was the assistant director. There were 2 assistant directors in the cast. One was in name and the other was in charge of casting and high-level affairs. His name was Meng Hao. Hua Jin didn't give him a contact number, but there was a group account in the cast. Looking at this account, Hua Jin recognized that it was Meng Hao. Usually, Meng Hao wouldn't call him unless it was something important. He guessed that this must have something to do with Liang Yi. When he picked up the phone, the other party asked directly, Hua Jin, what's wrong with your assistant? Didn't you say that there's an audition tonight? Why don't I see her? Also, I can't get through to her cell phone. Director Meng, I've heard about what happened today. I was the one who told Liang Yi not to go. Liang Yi is innocent. You can fool her, but can you fool me? Do you think I don't know what you're planning? In this industry, if you want to be in a film, you have to go all out. But Liang Yi is my assistant. Even if you want to give me face, you shouldn't do this. That's fine, but you actually came to me to ask for him? There was a deathly silence on the other side. After a long time, Meng Hao smiled. He naturally expected that Liang Yi must have told Hua Jin about this matter, so he didn't avoid it. After all, she was just an assistant. She expected that Hua Jin would at most turn a blind eye to it and not care about it. Meng Hao had taken a liking to Liang Yi. With Liang Yin's looks, it was definitely rare to see someone like her in the entertainment industry. Many celebrities in the entertainment industry had their looks altered, but they often looked like the product of an abortion line. This included the newcomers who had undergone plastic surgery to look like popular actresses. Yun Shishir, who had been popular for a while, had such a pure and innocent face. She was already a little tired of looking at all these faces. There weren't many natural beauties like Liang Yi. She was definitely a treasure. The more Meng Hao looked at her, the more he liked her. This is an inevitable process. You should know. Who doesn't come here at this time? If you can't even accept this, how can you stay in the entertainment industry? Chapter 3947. When he said this, Meng Hao was immediately displeased. Even his tone became lukewarm. Hua Jin, you're not ordinary now. You're famous. Don't forget how you got to where you are in the past. You're looking down on the unspoken rules. Don't you think that your unbearable past is a stain that you can never erase? Do you think that the past doesn't matter now that you're famous? Hua Jin is just an assistant. Do you have to be so protective of her? When Hua Jin heard this, his face turned pale. Then he retorted, Director Meng, let's talk about the facts. If you want to use the unspoken rules on my assistant, then let's talk about it openly. I can't say anything if a man and a woman are willing. But don't you think that's too disgusting to deceive her? Perhaps it was this word that enraged Meng Hao. My mother doesn't even think that you're disgusting. Who knows what kind of person your assistant is? She pretends not to know. But since she wants to be in this industry, don't she know how complicated it is? Why are you pretending to be innocent? Don't act anymore. Get out of here. When Hua Jin heard this, he was completely enraged. If it weren't for people like you who break the rules of the industry, would actors like to be used by the unspoken rules? When one entered this industry, there were too many things that were beyond one's control. There were different levels of actors and actresses, and gradually there was a foul atmosphere. It was these directors and capitalists who condoned this atmosphere that made many people willing to use the unspoken rules to get to where they were. As for those who truly had strength and principles, they were buried. Don't make it sound so nice. Aren't people like you just chasing after fame and fortune? Isn't that what you want? You're still pretending to be obedient after getting benefits? What a pompous statement. All right, that's enough. Meng Hao interrupted him impatiently. People like you are at the bottom of this industry. People like you deserve to please us. No matter how glorious you are, you'll be under us for the rest of your life. With that, the phone was hung up harshly. Hua Jin stood by the floor-to-ceiling window, holding his phone. He was so angry that he was trembling. Damn it. People like you, no matter how glorious you are, will be suppressed by us for the rest of your lives. These words were like a stab to his heart. Hua Jin clenched his fists. The old scars in his heart were ruthlessly torn open. Even the scabs and skin were badly mangled. Hua Jin? Liang Yin's weak voice suddenly came from behind. Hua Jin didn't dare to turn around and let her see him in such a sorry state. Liang Yin was just about to return the script when she heard Hua Jin arguing with someone through the door. Worried, she swiped the room card and heard Hua Jin and Meng Hao arguing. She felt especially upset when she heard that. She didn't know why, but when she looked at Hua Jin's lonely back, she actually felt an incomparable heartache. She walked over gently and held his shoulder carefully. Hua Jin, are you okay? Hua Jin shook his head and said, I'm fine. Liang Yin looked at him quietly, feeling a little upset. She remembered how Qin Zhou looked a little distressed when he talked about Hua Jin during breakfast in the morning. Actually, I don't manage artists anymore, but Hua Jin is the only one I've made an exception for. Chapter 39-48. She didn't like Hua Jin in the past because there were rumors that Hua Jin acted like a big shot and bullied newcomers and actors in the same crew. That was just his defiance. Defiance against the rules of the entertainment industry. Defiance against those who were suppressing him. Unlike many other artists, he was forced to enter the entertainment industry. Even though he floated in the big dye vat that was the entertainment industry, he still managed to maintain the innocence of a child. Liang Yi knew about his past. No wonder he reacted so violently when he found out that the director had asked her to talk about the script at night. Liang Yi, I regret it. As Hua Jin spoke, he turned around with a sullen expression. You'd better never step into this industry. You can't afford to lose. He was the victim, so why did he have to drag Liang Yin into this? There was too much darkness and unfairness in this industry to begin with. Liang Yin shouldn't have stepped into this industry. Liang Yin paused for a moment and smiled. I used to think that you were a perverse and rebellious idle boy. Actually, Hua Jin, haven't you realized that you're a very gentle person? When Hua Jin heard this, he didn't understand why she said that. Gentle? Although you always say mean things, you've always been taking care of others. Thank you for thinking so much for me. Hua Jin and Liang Yin looked at each other and smiled. Liang Yin giggled and said, moreover, if I really enter the industry, many actresses won't be able to make a living. Hua Jin couldn't help but retort, what do you mean by that? Look, someone with good acting skills and good looks like me gets paid so cheaply. Isn't it obvious that I'm stealing their jobs? When Hua Jin heard this, he couldn't help but laugh. That's right. Liang Yin couldn't help but reach out her hand and rub his face as if she was coaxing a child. Aya, why are you so cute when you laugh? Hua Jin was angry and amused at the same time. He slapped her hand away. Stop fooling around. I'm serious. Liang Yin pouted. You should smile more. Hua Jin curled his lips into a half smile and raised his hand to pinch her cheek. The next day, Liang Yin had something to do and was not in the hotel. Hua Jin was filming and coincidentally bumped into the assistant director. Speaking of which, it was rather strange. Last night, Meng Hao and Hua Jin had gotten into a huge argument over the phone. When they met in front of Director Gu, Meng Hao smiled cheekily at Hua Jin. However, Hua Jin did not give him much face and rolled his eyes at him. When Meng Hao saw this, he was furious, but he had no choice but to swallow his anger. Just as Meng Hao was about to take advantage of the time Hua Jin finished filming to have a talk with him, Qin Zhou unexpectedly came to visit. It was rare for Qin Zhou to visit. For the first time she came to visit him at work, catching Hua Jin off guard. Why are you here? Qin Zhou didn't know why he had come to visit. He just wanted to come for no reason. He did not answer Hua Jin's question directly. Instead, he sat in the waiting area like a big boss. Hua Jin immediately served the big boss tea. Big boss Qin spoke. I don't think I've come to visit you since you started filming. So, since I'm free today, I'm here to see you, lest you look like an orphan. Hua Jin was speechless. Qin Zhou suddenly thought of something. He recalled Hua Jin's reaction when he saw him and smiled. You seem to know that I already know about that matter. What matter? The matter that you've switched back. Chapter 39-49. You're such an astute person, how could you not notice that something was wrong? When Qin Zhou heard that, he felt that it made sense. What I said really came true. When I woke up in the morning, I realized that it had already been returned. Hua Jin still had some lingering fear. You can say that I borrowed your words. Then, Qinzhou's lips suddenly curled into a sinister smile. Do you mean what you said? What do you mean? Do you mean what you said about me counts? Hua Jin did not react at first, but he nodded naturally. Yes, of course. Wait. He stared blankly with his eyes wide open. What do you mean? Qinzhou reminded him calmly. I remember that you said that if you want to change back, you want to run naked. Hua Jin was petrified. He furrowed his eyebrows and said guiltily, It's just a joke. It's just a joke, how can you take it seriously? Are you a man? Yeah. Qinzhou said disdainfully, a man's word is worth 1,000 gold, even if it's just a fart. Hua Jin controlled himself and immediately said, Since you said so, what else can I say? Let's talk about this when we're back at the hotel. What's the point of going back to the hotel? Qinzhou hinted with his eyes. Look, there are so many people here. Why don't you show off your body? Who knows, there might be reporters here and tomorrow's headlines will be yours. Hua Jin could not help but shudder. He could even predict what the news would say about him. Popular young actor Hua Jin has mental disorder, stripped naked and ran naked on set. No way. Hua Jin's stand was firm. I was just joking, do you really want me to run naked? Qinzhou said in an old-fashioned manner, who knows, if you run naked tomorrow, Huanyu's shares will double tomorrow. Hua Jin clenched his fists and complained, what a scary capitalist. Qinzhou urged, enough, stop talking nonsense, hurry up. No. Strip. No. Strip. Qinzhou seemed to take it seriously. He stood up all of a sudden. With his tall stature, his aura was almost 2 meters tall. Hua Jin was instantly terrified. He cupped his fists and begged for mercy, boss, don't be like this. I can even perform a striptease for you in the hotel. Are you serious or are you joking? Do you think I'm joking with you? Hua Jin immediately moved 3 feet away from him. Stop fooling around. All right, stop messing around. Qinzhou added, I'm really not interested in your body. Hua Jin, where's your little assistant? Qinzhou returned to his seat and asked, why haven't I seen her today? She has something to do, so she has to go home. What is it? When Hua Jin heard this, he frowned and glanced at him suspiciously. He sniffed. Seeing him sniffing like a puppy, Qinzhou said in disdain, what are you sniffing for? Adultery. The smell of love. Hua Jin winked and said, why are you so concerned about her today? Is it strange that I'm concerned about my employee? Hua Jin said seriously, even if she's your personal employee, it's strange for you to ask more than a second question. Qinzhou, don't tell me you're interested in her? Without waiting for Qinzhou to speak, Hua Jin justified himself. That's true. After all, we share the same bed. Strictly speaking, it's also a short-lived marriage. Chapter 3950. Yesterday, Meng Hao invited Liang Yin for an audition. After the audition, Director Gu was quite satisfied. Meng Hao. Qinzhou recognized the name. Meng Hao's table manners are notoriously ugly in this circle. Why did Liang Yin want to audition? Does she want to act? She seems to be interested in acting. Qinzhou thought about it. Since she passed the audition and Director Gu was very satisfied, what's next? Hua Jin said, Meng Hao invited her to a hotel tonight to talk about the luminous script. Luminous script. When Qinzhou heard this, his eyebrows furrowed. This word had a deep meaning in the industry. There were often directors and producers who used the excuse of talking about the script to invite new actors or celebrities who wanted to act. They would go to the hotel under the guise of talking about the script and do inappropriate things. Of course, this did not only happen to male directors. Some older artists with more experience and resources were not limited to men and women. The object of this unspoken rule was also not limited to men and women. Especially many male directors, men and women had different tastes. The sexual orientation of many directors was a mystery. Qinzhou knew that Meng Hao liked to play with women. Sometimes he would also play with some of the new young men. It was quite disgusting. Qinzhou had been in the industry for so many years and countless women had been sent to his door. It was not that he was not moved, but he felt that it was dirty. It was not that he felt that those who did not hesitate to sell their bodies for fame and fame were dirty. It was that he felt that this kind of transaction was too dirty. He did not touch it. Although walking by the river often, who would not wet their shoes? But Qinzhou did not know what it was. It was as if he was made of steel, and his determination was extremely terrifying. However, there was one thing that everyone in the industry tacitly agreed on. No one dared to touch Qinzhou's people. No matter how low their status was, as long as they were under Qinzhou, no matter how crazy they were, they would not dare to touch a hair on them. Therefore many newcomers who signed with Huan Yu dreamed of being under Qin Zhou. Because if they became Qin Zhou's artists, not only would the resources be explosively good, but they would also not have to go through those ugly unspoken rules. In this industry, even if they did not take the initiative to offer themselves, sometimes they could not help but be selected by the boss. They had to accompany him. If he didn't accompany them, it meant that he wasn't giving them any face. If it was light, they would withdraw their cooperation. If it was heavy, they would be banned from the internet. But Qin Zhou had the confidence and ability to do so. No one dared to do anything to his artists. Even if there were some that didn't know what was good for them, they would be beaten back in a few seconds. How dare Meng Hao? I wonder who Liang Yin belongs to. Although Liang Yin was only Hua Jin's assistant on the surface, since she was Hua Jin's assistant, Liang Yin's people were also his people. Meng Hao actually dared to have such an idea. No wonder he saw Meng Hao heading towards Hua Jin's resting place when he arrived. I had a fight with Meng Hao yesterday. What is it? He scolded me for not being tactful. Hua Jin was like a primary school student complaining to his teacher. He told Qin Zhou about his argument with Meng Hao last night. When Qin Zhou heard this, his expression did not change, but it was obvious that he was angry. Alright, I got it. He said, I'll handle it. Just focus on your acting. When Hua Jin heard this, he nodded silently. In the afternoon, Qin Zhou asked Meng Hao to meet. When Meng Hao found out that Qin Zhou had summoned him, he felt a little guilty. Chapter 39:51. It would be fine if Hua Jin didn't take it to heart. But if he took it to heart and word got to Qin Zhou, he would be in deep trouble. Who was Qin Zhou? He was the boss of Huan Yu. Although Huan Yu was a branch of Xinyu Financial Group on the surface, and Mu Yazha was the main legal representative of Huan Yu, in fact, the real power of Huan Yu had long been in Qin Zhou's hands. Mu Yazha had already handed over the real power of Huan Yu to Qin Zhou. If it weren't for their strong friendship, he would never have ceded such a big Huan Yu to Qin Zhou. This showed that Qin Zhou and Mu Yazha had a good relationship. Most importantly, everyone knew that Mu Yazha's wife, Yun Shishir, was an artist under Qin Zhou. Although Yun Shishir did not stop acting after giving birth to a little princess, she was no longer as active as before. She would occasionally take on high-quality female lead roles or attend some charity events. Basically, she would decline to participate in variety shows. It could be said that she had pretty much disappeared without a trace. But under Qin Zhou's operation, as long as Yun Shishir acted in a TV series or movie, it would definitely be the most popular. Whether it was the ratings or the box office, they were all second to none. What a terrifying operation to create such a situation. Qin Zhou was now mainly in charge of the operation of Huan Yu. The only artist who was more active under him was Hua Jin. It could be said that Qin Zhou's focus now was all on Hua Jin. Meng Hao was also sure that offending Hua Jin would undoubtedly offend Qin Zhou indirectly. So, the next day he thought about trying to apologize to Hua Jin. In the end, in front of Director Gu, Hua Jin didn't even pay attention to him. Meng Hao was embarrassed. Director Gu also realized that something was wrong and couldn't help but ask what was going on and if he had offended Hua Jin. How could Meng Hao admit it? He was still angry. He had obviously lowered his status, but Hua Jin didn't even look at him, which made him very embarrassed. Director Gu added, "Luckily you didn't offend Hua Jin. If you had offended Hua Jin, it would be equivalent to offending Qin Zhou." The consequences of offending Qin Zhou were self-evident. Meng Hao couldn't sit still anymore. Therefore he thought of looking for an opportunity to have a good chat with Hua Jin and get closer to him. In the end, when she went to the waiting area, she bumped into Qin Zhou. She quickly left with her tail between her legs. Not long after, he received a call from Qin Zhou. On the phone, Qin Zhou's tone was still calm, saying that he had something to discuss with him. Meng Hao suddenly had a bad premonition. He felt that Qin Zhou's invitation to him was more like a hongmen banquet. Although Meng Hao felt guilty, he still mustered up his courage and perfunctorily replied. No matter what, since Qin Zhou had asked him out, he had to go. Qin Zhou was also here. The two of them met at a coffee shop near the set. As soon as Qin Zhou sat down, Meng Hao's entire body tensed up. The man in front of him was clearly in his 30s, but he still looked like he was in his 20s. He was even older than Hua Jin. However, even though he looked young, his body had a dignified aura. Even though he was smiling, it still made people shudder. Meng Hao respectfully handed him a cigarette. Chapter 39:52. As Meng Hao spoke, he was about to light the cigarette. Qin Zhou did not take the cigarette. Instead, he lit a cigarette, took a puff, and gently flicked it into the ashtray. He narrowed his eyes and asked, "I heard that you went for an audition with Liang Yin. Is that true? When he heard that Qin Zhou had indeed asked him out for an audition, he could not sit still any longer. Yes. Qin Zhou exhaled a puff of smoke and said casually, I also heard that you asked her to meet you at a hotel tonight for the second audition? Yes. She is not familiar with the script, so I wanted to take it a step further. Meng Hao found an excuse, but this excuse was clearly useless in front of Qin Zhou. A step further? Qin Zhou caught on to these 3 words and became interested. What step further? I heard that director Meng has some rules. I heard that the real audition is usually done in bed? Meng Hao's sitting posture became more anxious. He quickly changed the topic. This Liang Yin, could she be one of CEO Qin's people? Qin Zhou knocked on the table to remind him not to play tricks. I'm not asking you a question. You haven't answered. Meng Hao immediately laughed awkwardly. CEO Qin, what are you talking about? What do you mean by audition in bed? CEO Qin should know the rules of this industry. In our line of work, we face a lot of pressure every day when we're casting. Moreover, these women come to us one after another. In other words, Meng Hao was pushing the blame onto Liang Yin, implying that Liang Yin had come to him on her own accord. Qin Zhou was even more displeased when he heard this. What you're saying is that my men are going to send themselves to your doorstep for you to infiltrate. Meng Hao couldn't sit still anymore. Isn't that? I didn't even touch her with a finger. Meng Hao frowned and decided to be frank. Boss Qin, I figured out why you asked me to meet you this time. You're here to seek justice for Liang Yin, aren't you? Since that's what you mean, I think you're making a mountain out of a molehill. This matter hasn't even happened yet. However, after hearing what you said, I also know that from now on, as long as it's your people, even if it's just a small assistant, I won't dare to touch them. I'll give you my word, all right? He felt a little aggrieved. If he slept with this person, then he would feel a little guilty when they came knocking on his door. However, before he could even take a bite of the fat meat in front of him, Qin Zhou had already interrogated him. He couldn't help but feel a little displeased. Qin Zhou saw the change in his expression. Qin Zhou raised his eyebrows, picked up the coffee cup and took a sip. There was a long silence. Meng Hao couldn't sit still any longer. He stood up and bowed to Qin Zhou. There's still work to be done on set. I'm in a hurry to go back. Chairman Qin, please take a seat first. As he spoke, he pretended to leave. Qin Zhou, on the other hand, appeared to be neither hurried nor slow. He did not even lift his eyelids as he asked, Did I allow you to leave? I remember when we first met, you were still a small-time producer. Now that you've been promoted to assistant director and have more experience, you're looking down on others. Chapter 3953. He had originally wanted to find an excuse to leave, but now that Qin Zhou had said that, how could he dare to leave? He didn't even know if he could walk out of this cafe. It was said that Qin Zhou's methods were ruthless. In the industry, no one dared to provoke him because he always won by surprise, making it impossible to guard against him. It wasn't that he liked to backstab people. Instead, he used his power to oppress people. Qin Zhou had a lot of power, and he knew that he had a lot of power. Hence, he used it to oppress people. He was a person who hated trouble. If he could solve it with power, he didn't want to waste his energy. Meng Hao didn't know what Qin Zhou's motive was, so he decided to lay his cards on the table. CEO Qin, may I ask what you mean by this? Why don't you tell me directly? If I can compensate you, I will do my best to do so. Qin Zhou said slowly, I'm just a little surprised. I didn't think that there would be someone in this industry who would dare to offend my people. That's why I find it a little unbelievable. Meng Hao quickly said, I didn't think of it at first. Now I know that I didn't know the rules. Next time, I definitely won't do it again. Qin Zhou said, I think that since she has passed the interview, Director Gu is quite satisfied with Liang Yin's performance. Then why don't we let her join the cast directly? However, after she joins the cast, please avoid her when you see her. When Meng Hao heard this and saw that Qin Zhou actually proposed this condition, he agreed 120%. Okay. From now on, I will treat Liang Yin like a grandaunt. Don't worry, I will definitely not let anyone make things difficult for her. After she joins the cast, give her the best assistant and makeup artist, understand? Okay. Also, the plot of Ubisoft Bird will be increased. This? Meng Hao looked a little hesitant. Qin Zhou looked at his troubled expression and immediately said, in the original novel, Ubisoft Bird was very important in the plot. In order to emphasize the role of the other female supporting character, the scriptwriter cut out many of her scenes. Meng Hao asked, CEO Qin, have you read the script? Yes. Okay. Meng Hao nodded with a serious expression. I'll get the editor to change the script when I get back. Okay. Then, Meng Hao asked cautiously, can I leave now? Qin Zhou didn't say anything, but he didn't ask him to stay either. Seeing that Qin Zhou had tacitly agreed, Meng Hao immediately left with his tail between his legs. In the evening, Liang Yin received a call from Meng Hao. She thought Meng Hao was calling to harass her, so she did not pick up. Not long after, Meng Hao sent a message to say that Qin Zhou had spoken to him in the afternoon. He solemnly apologized to Liang Yin and said that he could directly arrange for her to join the set. Moreover, he had already contacted the scriptwriter to change the plot. The plot of Ubutero would become more serious. Liang Yin was shocked. She didn't expect that Meng Hao would call her to inform her that she would be joining the crew. However, she was still a little suspicious. Hence, she hurriedly called Hua Jin and told him about it. Hua Jin, on the other hand, was not surprised. He had also heard about it. It's probably because Qin Zhou talked to him today. Qin Zhou? Liang Yin was a little puzzled. Director Meng said that Qin Zhou was the one who looked for him. What happened? Chapter 3954. Liang Yin felt awkward. Why did you tell him about this? It's quite embarrassing. Why do you feel embarrassed? Hua Jin said half-jokingly, the director has taken a liking to you. This means that you are pretty and have the looks of a celebrity. Shouldn't you feel happy when you think about it? Liang Yin did not know whether to laugh or cry. She was more curious about Qin Zhou. What did he say to Director Meng today? I don't know what he said to Meng Hao, but Qin Zhou seemed to be very angry. I guess he went to reason with Meng Hao. Meng Hao was afraid of causing trouble, so he arranged for you to join the production team. To the production team, this should be an exception. Haha, I feel that Qin Zhou cares a lot about you. Don't talk nonsense. What do you mean I'm talking nonsense? You don't know that he actually came to visit me today for the first time. Hua Jin said angrily, you don't know that he rarely comes to visit me even though I've been in the production team for so long. He actually came to visit me today. Could it be that he has found his conscience? To Qin Zhou, Hua Jin should belong to the free-range type. Firstly, Hua Jin was more obedient and did not cause trouble, so he was not worried. Secondly, he had already arranged for work matters. He only needed to send the draft to his assistant's email and Hua Jin would follow the schedule. It was under such circumstances that Qin Zhou actually came to visit her. Who knew what he was thinking? Liang Yin, however, was still skeptical. Then, should I join the production team directly? Yes, you can join the production team directly. You don't have to worry about anything else. I heard that Qin Zhou even arranged an assistant for you. An assistant arranged by Meng Hao? Liang Yin was still worried. She felt that Meng Hao would not let her off so easily after being taken advantage of. Don't worry. Meng Hao won't dare to offend you. In the past, no one dared to offend Qin Zhou. Now that Qin Zhou is different from before, how dare Meng Hao? What a joke. What ability does he have? He's just a small assistant director. When Liang Yin heard this, she was a little dazed. At that time she was filming on the set. When she went in and out of the film studio, she would often see women dressed to the nines. They would either hold the assistant director's hand or the producer's hand as they walked on the streets, smiling like flowers. Even such a small assistant director was enough to make them scramble like a flock of ducks. Now, based on Hua Jin's tone, the assistant director was actually a mere person. In this circle, the difference in level was not small. But since Hua Jin said that she could directly join the crew, Liang Yin had no choice but to comply. By the way, your pay has also been set. It's the highest among the supporting roles, 100,000 yuan per episode. 100,000? I'm guessing it's because of Qin Zhou. But the production crew only dared to name a price because Huan Yu is one of the investors. Either way, let's just assume Qin Zhou is paying you. Liang Yin was a little flattered. Hua Jin said enviously, that's great. You come from such a good family. You have to know that you haven't signed a contract yet. You don't have to share your pay with anyone. I've just debuted. I can't even get 100,000 yuan per episode, let alone 100,000 yuan per episode. I just want to show my face. Liang Yin felt even more uneasy. She felt that she owed Qin Zhou a lot. Why did he treat her so well? Could it be, was he interested in her? Liang Yin quickly waved her hand when she thought of this. Chapter 3955. Just as Liang Yin's imagination was running wild, an unknown number called. Since she didn't save the number, she didn't know who was calling. She picked it up suspiciously. Qin Zhou's voice came from the other end of the line. Are you free tonight? Qin? Liang Yin recognized Qin Zhou's voice. She was so nervous that she couldn't be any more nervous. She stood up, looking a little uneasy as if her idol was really standing in front of her. Qin Zhou heard her stuttering and obviously nervous. He couldn't help but laugh. You seem a little nervous when I called? No, why are you calling me? Liang Yin held her forehead in annoyance as she asked this question. She sounded as if she didn't like him calling her. She definitely didn't mean it that way. She hoped that he wouldn't misunderstand her. Qin Zhou found her even more interesting after hearing this. She was so nervous. It seemed that what Hua Jin said about Liang Yin having a crush on him was true. Don't be nervous. I'm just asking if you're free tonight to have dinner together. Dinner? Liang Yin was so excited that she almost couldn't catch her breath. When she came back to her senses, she quickly nodded and said, Of course I'm free. What are we eating? However, after saying this, Liang Yin felt a little annoyed again. Why did her tone and words make it seem like she wasn't reserved at all? Would he think that she was a frivolous woman who couldn't wait to throw herself at him? Liang Yin suddenly felt that both her IQ and IQ had dropped by more than one level. They weren't even in love yet? How could she be so stupid? Could it be that the saying that a woman's IQ would drop when she was in love was true? Just as she was letting her imagination run wild, Qin Zhou's voice came clearly from the receiver. Did you hear what I said? Ah. Liang Yin was so lost in thought that she didn't hear what he said clearly. She immediately said, There seemed to be a problem with the signal just now. What did you say? I asked you if it's convenient to pick you up now? It's convenient. After Liang Yin gave him the address, she thought for a moment and said, Can you get there in half an hour? Well, if there's no traffic jam, we should be able to get there in half an hour. When Liang Yin heard this, she immediately felt a sense of urgency. After hanging up the phone, she immediately rushed into the bathroom to wash her face, wash her hands and apply her foundation. She wasn't very good at makeup, but she knew how to do basic light makeup. However, she didn't know if it was because she was too nervous and flustered, but she seemed to have put on too much eyeshadow and too much lipstick. Just as she was about to start all over again, Qin Zhou called and said that he was already downstairs. Liang Yin didn't have time to remedy the situation. She put on her coat and hurried downstairs. When she arrived downstairs, she saw Qin Zhou's Bentley parked at the entrance of the neighborhood. He was sitting in the car, smoking a cigarette. When he saw her come downstairs, he immediately put out the cigarette, opened the door and got out of the car. The moment he saw Liang Yin, his face froze. Qin Zhou's deep gaze landed on her face. At first glance, he was attracted by her thick eyeshadow. She seemed not very good at makeup. Her eyeshadow was too thick, so her eyelids looked bloated. Chapter 39:56. Qin Zhou asked, Did you put on makeup? When Liang Yin heard this, she became a little nervous. What's wrong? Is it very thick? Qin Zhou touched the tip of his nose and said, Yeah, it's a little thick. Like a little tabby cat. Liang Yin covered her face guiltily. She didn't have a mirror with her, so she didn't know what to do. It's cold, let's get in the car first. As Qin Zhou said this, he unlocked the car. Liang Yin lowered her head and got into the car in frustration. However, for some reason, perhaps because she was worried that she would sit too close to him, the failed makeup on her face was clearly visible. When Qin Zhou got into the car and saw that she was sitting in the back seat, he was a little surprised. Why are you sitting in the back? Well, Liang Yin said guiltily, do you want me to go up and remove my makeup? I don't really know how to put on makeup. It seems too ugly. If you don't know how to put on makeup, why do you want to put on makeup? Qin Zhou retorted. Hearing this, Liang Yin felt even more dejected. It looked like she really did put on makeup that was very ugly. Otherwise he wouldn't have said that. Oh no. She had wanted to put on some pretty makeup to leave a good impression on him. In the end, she hadn't expected that it would backfire. Just as she was feeling more dejected, Qin Zhou suddenly said, I think you look good with makeup. When Liang Yin heard this, she was stunned. She was a little surprised and in disbelief. Really? Qin Zhou nodded seriously and patted the front passenger seat. He smiled and said, Come and sit here. Oh, she obeyed and moved to the front passenger seat. Just as she sat down, she saw Qin Zhou's hand resting on the armrest. His fair and well-proportioned fingers looked like they were carved from jade. They were extremely beautiful. They were even prettier than a woman's hand. Liang Yin couldn't help but be entranced by them. Seeing that she kept staring at his hand, Qin Zhou also looked at his hand. He turned it over and asked, Why do you keep staring at my hand? Liang Yin came back to her senses and looked up. When she saw him staring straight at her, she quickly turned her head and looked straight ahead. She gulped nervously, feeling unbelievably nervous. She was so nervous that her heart was thundering. Because, your hands are beautiful. Really? Qinzhou seemed to be used to it. There's no one who doesn't think my hands are pretty. Liang Yin smiled and rubbed her hands shyly. It was obvious that she didn't know how to act freely in front of him. Qinzhou opened the armrest box. Inside the armrest box were some makeup tools, cotton pads, and a makeup plate. He took them out and said to her, "Let me help you touch up your makeup." Liang Yin did not react in time and was very surprised. "Do you know how to put on makeup?" "I know a little. In the past, when I was taking care of Xingzhe, I was busy, so I would help him touch up his makeup. So, I'm used to having these things prepared." At the mention of Xingzhe, loneliness flashed across Qinzhou's eyes. Liang Yin carefully took out the unpackaged food from the armrest and looked at the mirror. In the mirror, she finally saw her face that was not properly made up. It was purple. No wonder Qinzhou had been staring at her for so long. It was really unsightly. Qinzhou said, "Turn around." Chapter 39:57. Her heart was beating faster and faster. As he was touching up her makeup, Qinzhou was very close to her. She could even feel the gentle breath coming from his lips. It was warm, but it was boiling hot. Liang Yin was so nervous that she didn't dare to speak. Even her breathing was cautious. After Qinzhou wiped away some of the puffy eyeshadow on her eyelids, he added some brown eyeshadow. It was very light, but it looked very natural. He then covered it with makeup powder. "It's done." It was done. Qinzhou handed her the makeup mirror. Liang Yin picked it up and looked at herself. Oh my God! What a godly makeup touch-up. Originally, her makeup was very stiff. She didn't want to say that it was very erotic. She didn't expect it to become so delicate after his skillful hands. "You look good." Liang Yin felt a little ashamed. Even a man looked better than her in makeup. Her hands were so bad that they were hopeless. Qinzhou smiled and said, "I think that with your talent, you don't need makeup unless it's a special occasion. You look very good without makeup." Liang Yin's face turned even redder. "What do you want to eat?" Qinzhou said, "I remember that you like Western food?" "Yeah. I know a good restaurant. I'll take you there." When Liang Yin heard this, she was puzzled and asked, Why do you want to treat me to a meal?" Qinzhou started the car and turned the steering wheel as he said, "Actually, nothing happened between us that night." Liang Yin was stunned for a few seconds. However, she quickly realized what Qinzhou was referring to. She immediately said, "You're talking about this." "It's nothing. I didn't think too much about it." It's better for the person involved to explain it personally. Liang Yin was a little disappointed. She felt that Qinzhou's words seemed to be trying his best to distance himself from her. Actually, he didn't have to explain himself. She wouldn't let her imagination run wild. His explanation made it seem like he was trying to draw a clear line between them. "I know. I won't pester you because of this." Liang Yin said this because she thought Qinzhou was worried that she would pester him because of this. Qinzhou knew what she was thinking, but he wasn't in a hurry to explain. Instead, he said calmly, "I didn't mean anything by what I said that morning. I was just testing you. Because when I first saw you when I woke up, I felt that you weren't Hua Jin." Qinzhou continued, "But I wasn't sure, so I wanted to confirm it. Sure enough, you've really switched back. This was also a good thing that was worth celebrating. So, let's treat this meal as a celebration, and also as an apology for what I did back then." Liang Yin blushed and nodded. She was extremely nervous. How could she not be nervous when her Prince Charming was sitting right beside her? The car sped along. Until the car stopped at a Western restaurant with an extremely elegant environment. Liang Yin looked up and saw a series of English letters on the signboard, but it was not an English photo. French. Qinzhou went to the front passenger seat and opened the door for her. Liang Yin got out of the car, pointed at the signboard and asked, "What kind of Western restaurant is this?" "This is French food. It's a 3-star Michelin restaurant." "What's a Michelin restaurant? Isn't it selling tires?" Qinzhou was speechless. Chapter 39:58. Indeed, there was a tire brand called Michelin that could be found everywhere. Liang Yin often saw this signboard's tires and a special cartoon character. Qinzhou pondered for a moment and said, "Actually, Michelin restaurants have another nickname." "What's the nickname?" "It's a restaurant that is troublesome to prepare and troublesome to eat." Liang Yin was dumbfounded when she heard this. So there was such a saying? Michelin dishes might take a lot of effort to prepare, but if you eat, the dish will be gone in a few seconds. Will you not be full? Coming to this restaurant is for this elegant atmosphere. But you shouldn't be hungry. Qinzhou said, "Why are you in a daze?" Let's go in. I've already made a reservation. Oh, Liang Yin was about to enter when she suddenly realized that Qinzhou had stopped moving. His arm was slightly empty as he gestured to her. Just hold my arm. Liang Yin was a little uneasy, but she still mustered up her courage and held his arm nervously. Somehow, she felt that this action was something that only couples would do. Qinzhou took her into the restaurant, and a waiter immediately led him to the reserved booth. Michelin restaurant had an elegant environment. When they walked in, the lights were dim, but it was enough to see the layout of the restaurant and the path under their feet. The two of them walked to the booth. The waiter first pulled out a chair and gestured for Liang Yin to sit down. It was Liang Yin's first time in this restaurant. She was not used to such thoughtful service and stood there in a daze. Qinzhou said, "Sit down." Only then did Liang Yin dare to sit down. Just as she sat down, the waiter adjusted the seat for her and walked to Qinzhou's side to pull out a chair for him to sit down. The service was too thoughtful. There was a kind of the sense of ceremony of European royalty. The service of this Michelin restaurant prioritized the ladies. In the same booth, the ladies would be prioritized before the men. The waiter looked French. This restaurant was originally opened by French people. Everything in the restaurant, even the details, had been restored to the original taste of Michelin. The waiter unfolded the napkin and carefully placed it on her lap. However, such a complicated etiquette made her feel even more uneasy. She was afraid that she would ruin the dining ceremony of the restaurant and become a joke to others. She felt that most of the people who went in and out of the restaurant were either rich or respectable, but it was her first time stepping into such an expensive restaurant. This was even more luxurious than the Western food Huajin had treated her to. After laying out the napkins, the waiter served 2 appetizers. There were 2 appetizers. One of them was pointed out by Qinzhou, black truffle puff skin soup, which was bogus classic. It was said that only VIP guests could enjoy this dish, and it was not available to outsiders. On the surface, the cup looked like it was made of crispy pastry. After poking open the golden skin, one could see the warm soup inside. Liang Yin was suddenly in a dilemma. The dishes were so exquisite that she didn't know how to eat them. Previously, when he went to the Western restaurant, he still knew how to cut the steak. So, should he just drink the crispy skin soup or? Liang Yin looked at Qinzhou, asking for advice. Chapter 39:59. She took a bite and the fragrance lingered in her mouth. Liang Yin followed Qinzhou's example. She soaked the pastry in the soup and took a bite. It was delicious. The appetizer was Hungarian cheese, which was also delicious. Just like that, she finished all the appetizers in no time. The waiter was standing at the side. When he saw Qinzhou raise his hand, he immediately walked over and took away all the plates. However, when he saw Liang Yin eating the CD, he was surprised. Qinzhou took a look and saw that Liang Yin was a little confused. He immediately explained, "Almost no one eats all the appetizers here. Because it's delicious. It's okay. It's nothing. It's just that most people are picky. Moreover, they're afraid that if they eat too much appetizers, they won't be able to eat the main course." Isn't this the main course? The main course hasn't been served yet. Usually, one dish is the only dish on the table. When the appetizers are taken away, the next dish will be served. I see, she had learned something new. Liang Yin smiled and said, "It's delicious. If you didn't treat me, I wouldn't have known that there was such delicious Western food. This Michelin restaurant is considered authentic. The taste is quite good." Qinzhou's taste was also more picky. The restaurant that he chose would definitely not be bad. Then the main course was served one after another. The music in the restaurant was soothing and gradually calmed Liang Yin's nervous mood. Parmesan soufflé, Bayern boiled eggs. When the burgundy snail was served, Liang Yin's face gradually showed a trace of embarrassment. "This is snail, burgundy snail. It's delicious." Snail? Can snails be eaten? Snails are cultivated artificially. Their meat is very tender. When Liang Yin saw the snail, the image of a snail with 2 antennae slowly wriggling on the ground on a rainy day appeared in her mind. It was sticky and she could even see mucus. It felt difficult to eat. Liang Yin was a little hesitant. Qinzhou knew that she didn't dare to eat it. Those who weren't used to French food might flinch at the sight of snails. Actually, close your eyes and don't care what ingredients it's made of. Just try it. Perhaps because of Qinzhou's encouragement, Liang Yin did not want to disappoint him. So she closed her eyes and took a bite. If he forced himself to forget that it was a snail, the fat and tender texture and the sweet and fragrant juice were indeed delicious. However, when he thought about the appearance of the snail, he still found it hard to swallow. However, Liang Yin obviously gave him face and swallowed it. However, the expression on his face when he swallowed the pill was clearly a little conflicted. Qin Zhou couldn't help but laugh. After all, to her, eating snails was no different from eating earthworms. Is it good? Not bad, but if you're not used to it, just put it aside. It's fine. It's a waste not to eat. Liang Yin closed her eyes again and took another bite. She had even eaten silkworm pupae before, so what was there to be afraid of snails? It was just a mouthful of protein. After temporarily ignoring the snail, Liang Yin no longer held any grudges. She ate the 3 snails and wiped the corners of her mouth with a napkin. Actually, if you ignore the fact that it's a snail, this dish is quite delicious. Qin Zhou pursed his lips and smiled. He raised his wine glass. Cheers. Liang Yin also raised her wine glass. Ding. The glasses clinked. Chapter 3960. Liang Yin was a little afraid of getting drunk. She didn't know how she would behave when she was drunk and whether she would make a fool of herself. So she asked, "Will I get drunk?" That depends on your alcohol tolerance. However, no matter how bad your alcohol tolerance is, at least you won't get drunk after drinking this glass. Qin Zhou paused and said half-jokingly, "But if you can't drink, don't force yourself. I don't accept scams." Liang Yin pursed her lips and smiled. She suddenly felt that it was very comfortable to get along with humorous men like Qin Zhou. It was no wonder that people said that when they were young, they liked to chase after young, fresh meat because they were handsome and had a youthful aura. However, most women still ended up with mature and steady men. Qin Zhou was a typical mature man. At this moment, the lights in the booth suddenly dimmed. Liang Yin was shocked. She thought that there was a power outage. But if there was a power outage, the lights wouldn't have dimmed so gradually. Qin Zhou saw Liang Yin's surprised expression and immediately said, "This is a special program for this restaurant." Special program? While Liang Yin was still curious, she saw the holographic projection lights above her head emit a glassy color that wasn't dazzling. Then this charming and resplendent light gently fell on the white tablecloth. Such a big table now became a natural projection screen. The entire tablecloth was rendered into the Milky Way by the lights. It was too beautiful. It was so beautiful that it was suffocating. Liang Yin sucked in a breath of cold air. She didn't expect that the white tablecloth, which she thought looked ordinary when she sat down, would be so ordinary. She didn't expect that a holographic image would give her the feeling of being in a dazzling galaxy. "It's so beautiful." Qin Zhou smiled and looked at Liang Yin. Liang Yin looked at the resplendent lights in a daze. Along with the music, all kinds of beautiful effects were created. "Can I take a picture?" "Of course." After getting Qin Zhou's approval, Liang Yin quickly took out her phone, took a picture and uploaded it to her WeChat moments. She often used WeChat, but she didn't have many friends on it. Hua Jin was also there. Not long after Liang Yin uploaded the post to her WeChat moments, Hua Jin saw it. He went to look for Qin Zhou furiously and sent him an angry emoji. "Qin Zhou, you guys had a secret meeting behind my back and even went to eat a Michelin 3-star restaurant. Why didn't you bring me along?" Qin Zhou took out his phone and saw that it was a message from Hua Jin. He glanced at it and threw it aside, ignoring it. Hua Jin went to harass Liang Yin again. "Okay, you guys went to have fun behind my back and left me alone in the hotel." Liang Yin replied with a snickering emoji. "Hee, I won't bring you, I won't bring you." Hua Jin exploded in anger and sent an aggrieved kitten emoji. In the blink of an eye, tears flowed like a river. "If there's good food next time, I won't bring you guys along." Liang Yin smiled and replied with a tongue-out emoji. Then she ignored Hua Jin. Qin Zhou saw that she was holding her phone and guessed that it was a message from Hua Jin. He asked, "Hua Jin went to harass you?" "Yeah, he said that we didn't bring him to Michelin and he was angry." Qin Zhou snorted. "Did I not bring him here to eat enough? He must be sick of it. Do you guys come here often to eat?" Chapter 3961. Liang Yin lifted the wine glass and took a sip of champagne. Perhaps it was because of the small amount of alcohol, but her face turned red all of a sudden. On the way back, Qin Zhou had been drinking, so he called the chauffeur to help Liang Yin into the car. She was obviously a little drunk and a little groggy, but she wasn't exactly drunk. She only felt that Qin Zhou's voice was a little ethereal and distant. The heater was turned on in the car, so it was very warm. Liang Yin leaned against the seat and felt her head suddenly become heavy and groggy. Seeing that her head was swaying, Qin Zhou simply reached out his arm and put it around her shoulders so that she could lean on his shoulder. For some reason at that moment, Liang Yin suddenly became clear-headed. Even though she had indeed drunk some wine earlier and felt a little tipsy, Qinzhou's action had undoubtedly startled her awake. Leaning on his shoulder, she was so stiff that her whole body was tense. Liang Yin mustered up her courage and opened her eyes a little to sneak a peek above her head. Qinzhou looked out the window quietly. His chiseled side profile was extremely exquisite, like a work of art carved by the gods. With such good looks he could definitely debut as an idol. At that moment, Liang Yin clearly understood that she seemed to be in love. No one had ever treated her so well. Whether it was her father or her mother, she had been like a weed since she was young. She felt like she had been exiled. She wasn't a sentimental person, but occasionally she would feel envious and jealous when she saw other children coming home from school with their parents. When she came home alone, the house was empty. When she was young, she could only go to her grandparents' house to eat, or cook instant noodles for herself. She didn't know how it felt to be doted on. It wasn't because Qinzhou was so good to her that she liked him. It was because he gave her an indescribable feeling. She would rather recognize this feeling as a sense of belonging. I don't know how many times you've been giggling since this morning. On the set, Liang Yin was waiting for the opportunity to try on her makeup. When Hua Jin came back from filming, he saw her hugging his hot water bottle and giggling like no one else was around. He walked over grumpily and snatched the hot water bottle from her arms. He glanced at her and said, "How much longer are you going to giggle like that?" Liang Yin snapped back to her senses. She glanced at him and quickly stopped giggling. "Have you passed?" "Yes." "Wait for the next one." Hua Jin sat down and looked at her expression suspiciously. Even though she wasn't wearing makeup or blush, her red cheeks looked like they had been dyed with rouge. He couldn't help but feel suspicious. "What did you guys do yesterday?" Liang Yin said, "Nothing. I saw you giggling like a fool." Hua Jin smiled wickedly. "Did you make any progress yesterday? What are you thinking? What else did you do after dinner yesterday?" "We didn't do anything. After dinner he sent me home and then left." Hua Jin furrowed his brows. He hated Qinzhou for being so disappointing. He had thought that Qinzhou had taken a liking to her and wanted to make a move on her. Chapter 3962. At last night's dinner, Hua Jin had thought that Qinzhou wanted to serve meat directly. He didn't expect that Qinzhou had become a vegetarian. Boring humph. When Liang Yin heard that, she could guess what Hua Jin was thinking. She snorted coldly. "Do you think Qinzhou is like you? He's a gentleman, not what you think." "He's a gentleman? Do you want me to talk to you about his past relationships?" Hua Jin deliberately baited her. As expected, Liang Yin took the bait and became excited all of a sudden. "Past relationships? Tell me about it." "Humph, if you want to know, I won't say." Liang Yin hated people who kept people in suspense and didn't satisfy their curiosity. Was there a need to ask? It was obvious that he was doing it on purpose. Since Hua Jin didn't say anything on purpose, Liang Yin also resisted the urge to ask. Firstly, she didn't want Hua Jin to get what he wanted. Secondly, it didn't seem appropriate to ask about his past. However, Liang Yin started to ask Hua Jin about other things. "Do you know what Qinzhou likes to eat?" "Huh?" "For example, what kind of dishes he likes to eat. Also, what kind of fruits and flowers he likes." Hua Jin said casually, "He's a capitalist. He likes money the most. Money can buy everything you say." Liang Yin was speechless. She was speechless. Hua Jin frowned slightly. "Why, you want to make soup and cook for him?" I heard that when he goes to work he either orders takeout or eats from the cafeteria. The food in the cafeteria must be terrible, right?" If I remember correctly, when Huanyu was still in charge of CEO Mu, the chefs in the cafeteria at Huanyu's headquarters were all 5-star chefs. This tradition hasn't been broken yet. In other words, he was saying that a 5-star chef would surely be able to cook better food than him. Liang Yin was rebuffed one after another. She pursed her lips, feeling wronged. "I'll knit a scarf for him." Knitting a scarf? Hua Jin narrowed his eyes and teased, "Can't you be more mature and knit something difficult?" "I know how to knit scarves and scarves." "Really? Why would I lie to you?" Hua Jin said confidently, "Isn't a scarf just a matter of 2 needles tying a row of knots, then threading, hooking, and picking?" Liang Yin was hit hard again. Her whole person was like a wilted eggplant. She hung her head and looked very depressed. "But you can buy him a gift." "I don't know what gift to give. I have a feeling that Qinzhou lacks nothing." Hua Jin winked at her. "Do you know what Qinzhou likes?" "What?" "Men are just like women who like lipstick, bags, and jewelry. Men also have things that they like." "What?" "Qinzhou has a hobby of collecting things. I remember his walk-in closet has a row of drawers filled with all kinds of beautiful cufflinks. In fact, most of them are out of print. Cufflinks? Liang Yin felt that it was not a problem. These cufflinks shouldn't be expensive, right? Those that are not expensive usually cost a few thousand yuan. Those that are expensive, such as those with diamonds or gems, cost a few 100,000 yuan. Those that are out of print cost a few million yuan. There are even some that are hard to estimate. Liang Yin was dumbfounded when she heard this. A few million yuan? She remembered that cufflinks were the kind that replaced the original cufflinks and were nailed to the cuffs. Why? Someone spent a few million yuan just to buy a pair of cufflinks. How extravagant.